Getting started here. So, welcome y'all to another Nerdy Reviews. I'm the absolute nerd. You can just call me Briston. And I got my beloved friend right over here, Spenser.
Oh my goodness, it's happening.
Indeed, it is. So, finally, I'm actually having a guest here to review with me, have some fun thoughts, and what we want to say about the movie that we're going to be reviewing today. Finally, I'm not reviewing Gundam at least. But today, on our Nerdy Reviews, we're going to be reviewing Halloween, or in this case, Rob Zombie's Halloween. Before we begin with the review or anything like that, if you are watching this on Twitch, make sure to follow me on my Twitch channel. You can also follow Spenser here. You can check out his stuff right over there on Twitch TV, Heartless Omega. Also follow him on Twitter as well. I do have a Twitter, but I only really use it to promote stuff from time to time. And if you are watching this on YouTube, make sure to like the video, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment down below. I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about this movie? You love it? Did you hate it? Conflicting thoughts? I want to hear from you guys, so leave something down below. So, with that said and done here, some interesting, fun things here. So, Spenser, I know that you finally actually got a chance to watch the original Halloween back a week ago, if I'm not mistaken, alongside with the 2018 Halloween, which is the sequel.
Yes,
But
the canonical sequel. The one that actually makes sense.
I still think that the second sequel is like, it's kind of like a Legends of Zelda, right, where it kind of branches paths, right? So you got the original sequel, you got the Thorns direction, I guess, or Thorns saga, and then you had the new 2018 canonical approach, basically. But this is also your first time watching the Rob Zombie movie, right?
Yeah. So I finally told myself, hey, I've always had an interest in, because I'm a big fan of John Carpenter's work. I think like one of my top 3 favorite like horror movies of all time, for sure, is like The Thing, right?
Yes.
The original one, not whatever reboot nonsense they made later down the road.
Are you talking about the so to make sure, the 1982 The Thing remake, right? Not the I think it's 2013, 2012, 2013, and that was actually a prequel, but I know what you mean by like remake, because that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to reboot the franchise almost.
Right. Yeah. My favorite one was always the one with Kurt Russell and Keith David. That was my favorite one.
Oh yeah, that was a solid remake.
And I've always been a big fan of John Carpenter's stuff since. And actually, funny enough, yeah, you and I, we watched for the first time for me anyway. We watched like Big Trouble in Little China, which is a bit more campy, but it was still fun.
I still think of it as more of a cult classic. It's one of those movies where I did not like it at first, but then I came to love it. I swear, when I first watched that movie, I hated it, and then it just kind of grew on me. I don't know what dawned on me to rewatch the movie, because it wasn't like because at the time I had like movie channels and stuff like that, so it's not like it was on Stars or Cinemax where it was replaying. But I just had an inkling. I'm like, I want to watch that movie again, give it a second try, and it grew on me. But
it's campy, it's corny, but I can see why if you watched it while you were like growing up, or if you watched it at a younger age. It definitely has it's kind of like Space Jam. Like the movie is dumb and it makes no sense, but it's fun to watch. It's a theme park ride from start to finish.
Oh man. But let me ask you this. So just kind of glazing it over the top right now, not really diving in it too much, because we'll dive into it when we get to the end, right? But you had watched the first two, well, technically the first 2 movies, right? We'll put it in that way. The first 2 movies. And then you came into this one. I remember when I kind of brought it up to you, and like, even though it was in text, I kind of got that tone of like, there's a Rob Zombie version of this. What were your thoughts about Rob Zombie doing a remake of a classic?
So I think it's funny, because I think it was right around that time frame, like those early thousands, like mid 2000s. I think that was like a big thing that was happening a lot in Hollywood, where they would take these famous IPs that have been around for maybe like 10, 20 years and just go, you know what, let's just do that, but do it differently. Let's just do it with the 2010 graphics because they would take all these like same movies, but of course, over time, these movies got more violent. They got the technology that was available to make it more gruesome was just getting better and better. I mean, I think this was, I'm trying to remember, this was like right around the time where like Saw and like Saw 2 was like lurking about. And those movies are as gruesome as it can get.
And,
Um,
and it's funny when you were mentioning that, because what I was thinking at the time too was like, I'm thinking like kind of like the remakes, because I think was it like a few years beforehand there was like the Hills Have Eyes remake. They did like no, Grudge came out in 2002, 2003. The what was it? One Missed Call, those sort of things. So it kind of got me thinking about like, yeah, like with the whole remakes. It was like a small era in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. There was like a lot of like remakes that were coming out of horror movies, and usually it's like teen-based horror movies or turn into PG-13.
Yeah, I think it was just at that point in time where Hollywood just was like, hey, we want to make horror scary again. How do we do it? Well, just take what people know and just make it scarier with new shiny graphics, like the new CGI stuff. That's why I really kind of hated the thing with, I forget the actress's name. She played Ramona Flowers. Elizabeth Mary
Winstead.
Winstead something?
Yeah.
And of course, like, graphically speaking, yeah, it looks awesome, right? Because they can do stuff that they can never do before. But something that will never change for me is just I will always take practical effects over CGI, because if it looks like something I can touch, something I can taste and smell, if it looks like something I could visualize actually walking across my floor, that's terrifying. CGI, you're just like, yeah, well,
I think
a
it's a
computer made it.
texture thing with your eyes, right? So when you look at
Yeah.
practical effects, you could see the texture, you could see the actual movements or the realism behind it, right? And when you see CGI, it's kind of like a pseudo, like a knockoff. It doesn't look real, it doesn't look appealing, it doesn't look authentic. So there's always going to be that huge contrast between CGI and then practical effects. And like arguments can go both ways. You can argue like, well, practical effects look great, and then some people can argue that CGI looks great too. And then you can argue that practical effects look like crap, and then CGI can look like crap. So it works on both spectrums. I just think like usually when practical effects is done right, it look freaking amazing. Same thing with CGI, but more than often, whenever we see CGI, it's generally crappy CGI though.
Yeah, and it's funny because even as time has gone on, and a lot of people have taken the approach of, well, let's just do CGI because it's quicker, it's cheaper, it looks better. And I didn't know this, and this is kind of funny how it all kind of comes around with the horror movie genre. I didn't know that in Spider-Man, I know this is going to be weird, but in Spider-Man 2, I didn't know that they still use practical puppets for the little his little claw doodles.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you watch it again, you're like, wait a minute, there's CGI in that movie. He has those little CGI claws, but they still have puppets. And that was right around that ball. That was like 2005, 2006, whenever that movie came out.
Are you talking about the Amazing or the original?
No,
Sam
the Sam Raimi Spider-Man.
If I remember right, Raimi was 2001, 2002, if I'm not
right,
mistaken.
That was the first one.
Yeah.
And then the sequel with Doc Ock.
It's like 2003, 2004?
I was right around that ballpark. And I remember seeing him using practical puppets for the little claws for Doc Ock. And I was like, what? I thought that was all CGI.
Especially during the, I remember the scene where, like they're trying to surgically remove it from his back, right? And so you could see the way that the arms snake. It's very practical. It's not like CGI where it's like a straight movement. It's like, no, it wobbles and all that. And like it actually goes through. It looks realistic. And then again, with that texture look appeal to it.
Yeah, that was very much Sam Raimi doing Sam Raimi shit. That was him doing what he does best. But that kind of leads me to what I was talking about, is that when I watched it as a kid, I thought that was CGI because that was what it was. That's what was popular at the time. And then watching it now as an adult and like knowing more secrets about it, I was like, oh wow, that was really good looking because it was all CGI, or rather not CGI. It was all practical effects and puppets. And I still appreciate that to this day. Anybody who can do it, they can do it right and not make it look corny. That's the best. CGI, it still looks great. It's appealing to the eye, right? Because you're like, whoa, that's what I thought it looked like. But when they start moving, this just the super fluidity of it just makes it kind of disconnects you as the viewer. You're like, okay, I know it's a CGI. It's not that scary to me.
Exactly.
Um,
But
I already forgot what the question was, but
no, I know, because we went off on a huge tangent here. But it was basically I'm trying to remember how I framed it here. It was basically asking like what were your expectations, like knowing that there was a Rob Zombie remake, right? Because
yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, you've seen other zombie films, right? Like you've seen like House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects.
So you know what? Funny enough, I actually haven't. There's still quite of a bit of a backlog for me when it comes to horror films. I mean, I do love horror films, and I've seen quite a number of them. Um, but I think it's something that, I'll be honest. The catalyst this year was Dead by Daylight, because I've been playing that a lot and streaming that a lot. And in that game, they use a lot of those licensed killers. So you've got, Leatherface, you got Freddy Krueger, you've got Mike Myers, and as I've been playing those characters in from those respective franchises, I'm like, you know what, man, I've just realized I haven't really actually watched a lot of these. And the biggest offender, of course, was Halloween. Like you can't. It's like the cardinal sin. You can't call yourself a horror fan if you haven't seen the original Halloween. So I finally started catching up. And as I was doing a deep dive as to like, okay, so how many of these Halloweens are there?
Oof.
And then you learn that there's like 10 of these damn things. They're not all done by John Carpenter. Right in the middle of all that, right in the middle of the thick of it, there's a little Rob Zombie one. And I was like, wait, what? There's a Rob Zombie one. Well, I guess I mean, I know what his works are like. They're very gruesome, very violent, you know? So said, hey, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it all the way. So thought it'd be time to watch Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of funny because like I've seen this movie ages ago, so I saw this movie when it originally came out in 2017. I don't remember specifically when exactly because I saw it like the week that it came out, right? And beforehand, I'm a huge horror fan, so I've watched previous other horror movies. At the time, I think this is Zombie's third horror movie because he did House of a Thousand Corpses back in like I think 2001, 2003. I can't remember, and then he did Devil's Rejects in like 2004, 2005. So like I was familiar with that, and I don't know if that would count because I don't count music videos up until this point, right? And then he did like a little trailer for like Werewolf Women of the SS for Grindhouse. I don't know if you ever got a chance to watch that, the full Grindhouse movie, or like what is now known as Planet Terror and then Death Proof. But before they had split those two movies up, they had released it like that, and then he did like a mock trailer, that Werewolf Women of the SS mock trailer inside the movie, which was pretty funny. I thought it was great. But I was familiar with like Zombies style and stuff like that, so he's usually like very like a lot of that visceral, a lot of like very close up, sometimes shaky cam at times too. Which is funny because when I first found out about this movie came out, I remember I watched like an interview. I can't remember, it was like a special feature in House of a Thousand Corpses or something, but it was an interview with Rob Zombie in this room with like a bunch of his like horror movies and like random like horror icon stuff or whatnot. And he was talking about if he ever got to do a movie, like he would always love to see about like doing like a like his favorite was like Halloween, and he didn't really allude to that he wanted to make Halloween or not, but it seemed like something like he was really interested in, or like that's one of his favorites. Among that too was also Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is something that it's kind of which you would see in a lot of movies such as like House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects, where it's a very visceral, very up, like a lot of these kind of close up shots, very jarring shots too. So it's like when I heard that he was gonna make a Halloween movie, I was like, wait, that doesn't sound right. He's gonna try and remake something. Okay, I'm wondering how he wants to do this since this is one of his favorite horror movies. So I was like, okay, this is kind of like someone taking like a Star Wars movie. They're like a huge fan of Star Wars, and then they finally get to make their version of Star Wars, right? So
Yeah, that's always the scary thing, And it's not that I don't approve of somebody taking a famous IP and doing their version of it, because I think that's what kind of it can potentially breathe life into a new series, especially if it was something that just was like not that popular when it originally came out, or something that maybe didn't age very well. Like if something is like that came out like in the early 80s and the 90s, that was like the rise of the slasher films.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody, I think, can take those properties and can, if it's done right, they can absolutely breathe new life into it. And I haven't seen it yet, but I think a good example of that was probably like the new what's it called? The new Nightmare on Elm Street, because they came out with the new one, and I believe, and I haven't seen it, but I believe it got like pretty good reviews. Like people were like, "Oh snap, this is actually as good, if not better, than the original one."
It's weird because that one I think it was 2010 2011 with forgot Rorschach from Watchmen. It was
Right? Yeah, I
Jackie
love
Earle
the actor.
Jackie
My,
Earle
my
Haley.
brain's not on.
I'm trying to remember. Jackie Earle Haley was his name.
Yes,
And
yeah, you're right.
it was mediocre from what I understand from fans. Like some fans liked it. A lot of fans were upset about it because it's like it's its own take, which I always appreciate when somebody tries to take something that's been established and try to make it their own a little bit, right? But not going too far out with it, right? It's kind of like there with like video game movies or comic book adaptations, right? Where they're trying to make it original, and I can appreciate it, but at the same time, I would like it to be closer to the original. So maybe who knows in the future we can talk about on that one. I just know that fans were just upset because they kind of like took Freddy's spine away. They made Freddy not as comical. This is a much more serious Freddy, supposed to be more scarier, basically. So it depends because there's fans that I remember who love Freddy because after the first few Freddy Nightmare on Elm Street movies, a lot of people like Freddy because he's the more comical kind of killer, right?
Yeah,
Where
because
Jason and
he
Michael were
takes a
always
more.
that normal, staunch, ongoing like slasher, right? But Freddy just mocks and like taunts his villains and not villains, taunts his victims and stuff like that. So it's like it was more like that dark humor. And what people wanted from a Nightmare on Elm Street movie wasn't truly presented in that movie, but it did have a lot of homages, kind of like what we'll be talking about with Halloween or Rob Zombie's Halloween. It has a lot of homages or a lot of scenes or sequences that were from the original movie. So I mean, like I'm usually half and half with these. I can see where some fans can get polarized about it, though. I totally understand it. For me, I thought it was not that bad, though.
I think the biggest challenge when remaking or rebooting a famous IP is that you know you have to come in with the expectation that the nostalgia goggles are going to be on full force.
Mm-hmm.
People love these IPs for a reason. They love what it meant to them when they first watched it. They love the support that it's gotten over the years. Halloween is the quintessential scary movie. You can't have like a top 10 list of best horror movies and not have something like Halloween or one of its versions on it. I mean, look what it's called. It's called Halloween. It's in the month of the scary times. And in the original, it's funny because the original wasn't even that scary, if I could be sincerely honest about it.
It's so let me put it this way. It's kind of like more of the traditional horror movies where it's not necessarily like, so if we're looking at the timeline of horror, right? Beforehand, we had slasher movies in the horror genre. It started off with Peeping Tom, and then it became Psycho, and then there was a huge dormant time frame, like almost 20 years, like 19 years at least, because 18 years. Because then when we came to 78, we have Carpenter's Halloween, and Halloween revived the slasher genre. But it was more so not like, like how, Stab Happy, that was Friday the 13th, right? It was more or less a very suspenseful, very subtle kind of horror, right? So it's more of a build up and really relying on a lot of the elements that make it kind of scary. The darkness, silence, those sort of things. And Halloween uses a lot of that tension build up for when Michael actually strikes to make that horror. But if you watch it and you compare it to, like, for example, Friday the 13th versus Halloween, big difference. You got this campy slasher, which, oh my God, we know that there's a killer and they're going to go kill, and it's not really building up to that climactic kind of like scare, right? But Halloween is reveled for that because it just builds up. It takes its time, just like Michael kind of approaching his victims. it's a slow build of that suspense, and then it delivers with that slash.
Yeah, that was definitely the thing that made it more enjoyable for me. Watching it now, some 30 odd later, almost 40 years since the original one came out. Um, John Carpenter knows how to build suspense, and it may or may not always pay off, but the entire time you've got your hands like right by your chin. You're going, oh, what's gonna happen? Oh man, I don't, because his sound design and the way that he builds suspense is done very well.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the original, or I guess the John Carpenter with Kurt Russell's The Thing. Um, the sound is what makes it scary for a lot of the movie, because in that movie, you got a lot of the, it's just that dull, like dun 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 dun, as it's building it up, the sound starts to kick in, the music starts to rolly kick in, but it always has that dun 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 dun, and you're just like, dude, what's gonna happen? What's coming around the corner? Oh my gosh. And the scary part of it may not always pay off, or it might be too slow to like get you that scare. And that's what Halloween does. I think it does the build up really well. The payoff may not always be there, because it's like, you know, because it's like a movie from the 80s, right? It's a movie
Mm-hmm.
from the late 70s, early 80s. The payoff isn't always there, but that buildup is like, oh my gosh, that's the kind of foreplay that I want with my horror films. I want the
It's
buildup.
it's that atmosphere. And
Yeah,
I think it's kind of funny, like we talk about like the horror icons, right? Freddy, Jason, and Michael, right? And I like I mentioned, Freddy is more of that, that comical kind of a villain, right? He's kind of in your face. He's gonna taunt you before killing you. You have Jason, who's not so much as an atmospheric killer. He's more or less just that unrelenting entity that kind of like just jumps kind of at you, right? But Michael,
right.
and this is where a lot of fans, like, I can understand when fans like they kind of try to compare the killers, like, there's a cult following for a lot of these, like, slashers basically. But for Michael has always been that atmospheric killer. He's always the one that originate, kind of like when you were talking about Dead by Daylight, right? He's the one that kind of originate the whole, like, you feel the presence, you feel this thing that's looming over you, you don't know where it is. And that's what Michael is, more or less. He's this shapeless being, this entity of evil that doesn't care about who or what you are, but he's coming to get you. Not like where Jason, where he just comes to just bashes through doors or through windows and he's coming to get you. Michael just is kind of wherever, anywhere, and he's just that omnipresence kind of a villain, that atmospheric killer, and that's what makes him that scariness about Michael himself. He's kind of like all over the place.
And that's what I honestly, to me, was probably the not scary in the, because that was the other thing that started creeping up in the early, like, mid 2000s, was horror equals jump scare.
Oh Lord,
And
yeah.
I hate that, because you can do jump scares right. You can totally do it and make people poop their pants if you're doing it right. But the fact that most horror movies around that time frame, and even still onward to this day, where the entire movie is jump scare, the entire horror presence is an editing trick that makes it catch you off guard, catch you with your pants down, and that sucks.
Yeah.
Um, because it just, you don't get the time to get people, because that's not my definition of being scared. My definition of being scared is, let me not sleep after the movie's done rolling. You know what I mean? So, and sound has a lot to do with that, because with Jason, like you were saying, yeah, he kind of crashes in and kills people, but the scariest part is setting up that sound. It's the iconic shh, 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 ha, ha. That's scary. That
Mm-hmm.
creates this presence, this atmosphere of like, yo, he's here and I don't know where, but we gotta keep our eyes out because he's around. And the louder it gets, he's creeping in. And the thing with Mike Myers is, in the original movie, he's out there in the daytime. He's not like the horror, guy where you only see him at night kind of movie. No, he's literally just standing in the street, standing still and just looking at Laurie. That is horrifying
Yeah.
to think about. Of just someone just, whoa, they're not saying anything, they're not moving, they're not making a threatening gesture, they're just there. And that is scary, because you don't know their intent, you don't know what they're doing, you know And then later on, like in the beginning of that movie, she's walking down the street with her friend, and he's just there in the middle of the freaking street. Like, that's horrifying.
Yeah. And again, it's like right back to that. It's that entity that's there, and just like he's right there, right? He's standing there in front of Lori, and then when she looks away or she's trying to get someone to look at him, he's gone. But he's still there. And I think I'm not going to jump too far ahead. It's kind of like that same thing with the ending of the original movie. I'll kind of compare it with the current one itself. But I know we're still not getting towards the point, but let me just get us to move along. But I do want to say though,
we're doing the John Carpenter thing. We're creating atmosphere. We're creating build-up.
Exactly, we are creating this world.
But we'll get there together.
But I do want to say, this is not my first time watching Zombies Halloween. I've seen this. This is now the third time. I've seen it first time in the theaters. Second time, I think I caught it like on Stars or Cinemax years after it was released on DVD and Blu-ray, I think. And then this being the third time. One thing I do want to point out a couple of fun things here. So with Zombie doing what he does, it's kind of like, like if you think like a Judd Apatow film, or it's funny, I'm comparing horror to comedy, but it's kind of like, groups or cliques, right? And Carpenter does a nice, or no, sorry, Carpenter. Zombie does a nice habit of having kind of like his movie regulars or his familiars, right? So we get a lot of people that show up from previous movies he's done. At least in this case here, we had House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects, and then later on, these are some reoccurring actors and actresses that show up again later on in his other movies, such as like the Three from Hell, or from I think the movie was called 31. And then Lords of Salem, if I'm not mistaken here. But I just want to point out something here too. So just to give you a little bit of a relaxer before we just jump right into Halloween here. So I do want to say that this movie, I didn't look it up specifically with Halloween and then potentially Halloween Kills, because I don't know if they released the time frame. But apparently this is the longest Halloween movie to date. I need to double check that again, but it clocks in at 121 minutes, so it's a pretty lengthy Halloween movie, because usually they're like about an hour 30, an hour 40, but this is the longest one, clocking in at 2 hours basically.
Yes, yeah, I remember being just a little over, like just right under the 2 hour mark, and yeah.
And then here's a fun one too. So when it came to this movie being made, right? Before they greenlit Zombies version here, they were originally going to make a kind of like a branching off sequel for I think at the time it was Halloween Resurrection that came out, right? And they were going to call it Halloween The Missing Years, and it was supposed to be a prequel movie setting up Michael Myers in an asylum. So I don't know how that movie's going to come out, but I think it was kind of good that they didn't make that movie. I mean, we're going to kind of get into this a little bit too, because it happens at the very beginning of the movie too. This is the first movie in the entire Halloween franchise where Michael actually speaks. Granted, it's only when he's a kid. He doesn't talk as an adult, but it's the only movie, or I don't know if he does in the sequel. I can't remember. I've only seen the sequel once. Zombies Halloween 2 sequel, that is. But he's never spoken a word in any of the movies until now. So that's a fun little fact right there. Last one too. So when it comes to making the movie, right? Normally when it comes to movies that are being remade, right? I have a kind of an issue, like, so you're going to remake a movie that was pretty much a classic. Why? Or how dare you? That kind of a thing, right? Like, did you even bother talking to the original creator? Funny enough, before Zombie even made this movie, he approached Carpenter and asked him kind of like for his blessings, right? And Carpenter, let me try and see if I can see it here. His response to Zombie was just this, like, make it your own. Right? Literally, that's what Carpenter told Zombie. I know you don't know this information, Spencer, so here's some fun facts when it came to the Halloween franchise, right? So Carpenter directed the first 2 movies. He made the first one, didn't intend to do a sequel. The producers loved it. They wanted to make him a sequel, so they made a sequel, but he wanted it over, and he did his things with the second movie. Then it branched onto a bunch of other Halloween movies that he either produced or had no relation to. He just basically gave up the franchise at that point, right?
Yeah, I actually did a little bit of my homework, checking this stuff out, and yeah, I like the fact that Rob Zombie took kind of took a chance and thinking, hey man, like, can I do a version of this Halloween? And amazingly enough, John Carpenter went like, yeah, dude, but make it your own. Don't just copy and paste.
Exactly. And so that's something I appreciated with like when I came. I didn't know about this until like years later, and I read up that factoid. And I'm like, okay, so he actually did get the blessing from Carpenter, like, but he was told too to make it your own, not like a carbon copy. And like, long story short, when it comes to remakes, I'm depending on the remake itself, I'm usually okay with them. I just hate it when they're like a legitimate carbon copy, like Psycho. I don't know if you've seen the 1960s original Psycho and the 1998 Vince Vaughn, the Gus Van Sant remake, and that's literally a shot by shot remake, like from beginning to end. It's exactly how it is. No change to the script, no change to the scenery or anything, just shot by shot. So I like that's terrible. Why do you want to make a remake of that? I would like to see a remake that actually tries to do something new, modernize it, or again, a director taking the property and making it their own while still paying respect and homage to the franchise,
Right.
So,
And, it's kind of like with gaming, is that when you do a remaster of a game, all you're really doing is taking the same exact thing, but just putting a shiny new 1080p coat on it, right?
mm-hmm.
But when they do a remaster or rather when they do a remake, they're building it from the ground up and they're doing the stuff that they maybe just didn't have the time to do in the original, or they're fixing the little things that was really stupid about the original and they're making it better. And it may not be an exact copy paste, and they're just adding stuff to the world that they wanted to do before but just maybe couldn't. So if you're gonna, and that's what the movies kind of have a hard time doing, it's like, make it your own, make it new, but still pay respect to the original IP. And a lot of people, I bet you, will appreciate it that much more. Just take the same thing and say, hey, here's new graphics and 2020 money. Like, that sucks. That's stupid. That's why a lot of these reboots and remakes don't land. Right?
It's the principle of storytelling, right? You want to have this something you're familiar with, but you want to be told in a newer way, in a newer fashion, while still paying that respect. So it's like exactly just that. Let's go ahead. I know we've been chatting and all, but let's jump right into the film here. So the movie starts off, obviously we get the title, but this is something kind of interesting. And Spencer, I'm gonna need your help on this one because it's been a hot minute since I've seen the original movie. So the movie opens up actually with this credit card right here from Dr. Loomis saying, the darkest souls are not those which choose to exist within the hell of the abyss, but those which choose to break free from the abyss and move silently among us. I can't,
Well,
for the life of
Among
me,
Us.
remember if that was in the original movie or not.
I'm gonna go with no, or at least I don't recall that being part of the original movie. There is something that opens up, but I think it has something to do with more like, something with evil. I don't recall quite exactly what it was, but I don't think it was this.
Because like with Loomis, I know in the original movie he tends to have like a habit of being very philosophical with Michael, right? And he always describes Michael, kind of going back to that atmospheric killer kind of thing. He always describes Michael as this pure evil. There is nothing behind these eyes but just this looming shape, this evil that wants to do what it wants to do, right? And doesn't care. It's just this very sociopathic being, essentially. But I wasn't too sure when I saw this quote. I'm like, I can't remember this from the other movies, and I'm like, I was wondering whether or not this was in the original. And I haven't seen the original, to be honest, like a few years. I've seen the movie many times, and I remember Loomis always spouting like these kind of philosophical things about Michael, but I couldn't remember that was originally in the movie or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't recall. I know that there was some sort of a quote somewhere in the movie, and I just don't think it was that.
But yeah, I do like the quote though, because that one just really describes Michael as it is. But after that, we are kind of introduced. We do start off with seeing Michael first, and he's like playing around with like a little rat and stuff like that. And he's actually talking to it. And that, like I was mentioning earlier too, it's just like this is the first time you ever heard Michael talk. I mean, he does talk throughout his childhood for the most part, so it's kind of interesting. We then get introduced to a scene right here, which is basically the family of Michael, which I mean, in the original, I think the only thing we really see about his family, is just his sister Judith and then like his mom and dad coming back home. So here we actually got a lot more, and kind of going right back to with the what I was mentioning with zombies kind of a style, very gritty, very in your face, very I would almost want to attribute to like trailer park trash almost is the way he would go about it. The father, which I didn't get a better shot of this, but it's he's played by William Forsythe. Um, I for the longest time had thought that he was Bill Moseley. I'll go over that too, but I swear to God, because the way his again that kind of trailer park trash kind of like mannerisms with a lot of his characters, the way that Forsythe was talking and behaving sounds just like how Bill Moseley would be like in any of the previous like House of a Thousand Corpses or Devil's Rejects. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing right there. It's just how vile and like mean spirited this guy. He's like a real bastard.
Yeah, I'll be honest. This entire like scene, you know, the getting to know Michael's. This is something I just have an overall problem with the entire movie because it sticks around for the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is and I guess that's just going to be one of my central criticisms about this film is that, and it's something that still keeps happening to this day, and it's something that I'm always just going to dislike because I don't think it's necessary, and it's just a huge waste of time. I absolutely abhor origin stories. I hate them, especially when it comes to the villains or the scary thing, right?
But don't you want to know about them? I mean, we want to know where he came from, why he's doing this. I mean, don't you want to know?
My answer to that question is no, because that kind of creates, you know, it destroys the illusion of what that character is for me, right? You know, for me, maybe I'm just a weirdo in this, but I love the question of why are they evil? Why are they doing this? And the answer is because they're evil. That's it. No explanation, no rhyme or rhythm. They're almost like supernatural, right? They're just evil because they are evil. You know, sky's blue, grass green, Mike Myers is evil. That's it. There's no other explanation for it. And I love that because it does create that mystery. It creates that maybe they are going to explain it and then they never do. So it kind of leaves you wanting to see more. But the moment that they start to unravel these webs of, oh, they're evil because XYZ, you kind of kill the illusion for me. Because then at that point, number one, the main reason they do this crap, they're obviously trying to create sympathy for a character, right? Because then you as the viewer start to want to excuse Michael for what's essentially he's doing horrific things to these people.
Yeah.
But you don't go, oh my God, dude, that was horrifying. You go, well, you know, he was bullied, or oh well, you know, his family was messed up. Like, that's so stupid to me. Just make them evil for the sake, and that's kind of what makes them fun to watch because they're just killing indiscriminate. You know, they're like Thanos. They're just, you know, it's random almost. You don't know why they're doing it. There's no motivation. He's killing because
the sake of killing.
It's just killing. You know, because it tastes good for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He's just doing it all the time. But then you start throwing in, oh, the bad family upbringing. You know, he's got his mom and his dad, and they're first of all, this scene aged like milk. You know, this is 2021. That movie came out 14 years ago. And when I was watching the movie, I was jotting down my notes. Every word that I wrote down ended in the word phobia. Okay, including homophobia, like just all these horrible things that just don't land in today's landscape. And I get it, it was made for its time, but man, it was a little hard, it was a little rough to watch in 2021. And I was like, ugh.
I'd be kind of curious too, because like this movie does do some time skipping. If we're rounding it off, it should be a 16-year gap between what we're seeing right now in this scene and then later on in the movie, right? So if it was 16 years ago from the time of 2007, wouldn't that be like late 80s, if I'm not mistaken here? Late 80s?
I mean, probably.
Or early 90s. It's one of those two. But I mean, like, if it's in a rural area and all that jazz, I could kind of see how this is, but it's, and to me, again, when I was watching this, it was more or less because I was seeing this as zombie style. Like, he always has a lot of these characters that are very vulgar and, like, vile and stuff like that. Granted, I'm not saying that the mother is like that. I'm just talking about like you'll always have this one super nasty or multiple. I mean, you get a few of them in his movies though, but they're just there just to be kind of like that. I want to say like visual conflict. It's like kind of like in your face and just doing or saying anything the most nastiest way possible, just a jar, like it's a shock, right?
Oh, totally. I mean, it's made for. I mean, the time frame is 2007. This was around the time where everybody and their mom was trying to push the envelope. We're trying to be edgy. We're trying to, this was when cartoons like Drawn Together were coming out, and people were able to like get away with making a show like Drawn Together. There's the same thing on this one. It doesn't skip a beat whatsoever. It's making these characters say things where the audience, is gonna go, oh my goodness, they say that? How could what? And it's just to create that shock factor early on, just to kind of set the tone for the rest of the film. But in the first 10 minutes of this movie, I already had issues with it because, again,
Origin.
I hate the origin story. Don't explain to me why Freddy Krueger kills. Don't tell me why Jason does what he does. It just give me a fun person to look at while he's killing people on screen, and I'm here for that.
And see,
It's
like that's the interesting thing too, because like when I was looking into this too, that's something I've always known about when fans after watching this movie too. Like this is a polarizing kind of a movie because you get the fans who are like they love the original horror, like the original Michael movies, because exactly like I was describing, he's this atmospheric killer. Not talking about this Thorn saga, right? We're just talking about the original, like the original movie and the sequel, right? And Michael was just this entity, like just the way like Loomis was describing him is exactly what Michael was, right? He was just killing for the sake of killing. There's no rhyme or reason behind him. He is just quintessentially pure evil. There's no reasoning for what he does. I mean, in the other movies, they'll kind of give an explanation and it's a little bit crazy. I don't want to spoil it for you, so that way when you get the chance to watch it, you'll get to enjoy it.
Oh, don't worry, I won't. I'm sticking to the actual. I'm going from 1978, and I'm skipping right to 2018. That's the way I'm doing it. That's the way I'm sticking to it. Forget everything else. Like everything got retconned, so I'm not going to bother.
And then, so like the thing about that too is like it kind of goes back on that. That's why I was like a little bit amiss because I agree with you to an extent. Like I do enjoy origin movies to an extent because after a while it gets boring or and whatnot, right? And to me, it's like taking a horror icon and trying to rationalize him, right? Try to humanize him or give a reason behind it. It kind of takes the mysticism or the horror of that character. But at the same time, there are different types of horror, right? You got your supernatural kind of unknown horror, and then you kind of got this grounded reality horror, right? And it's just like, it's kind of like choose your own kind of poison, right? So I felt like this one was just, it was making more a realistic Michael. And like everything we see, and as we go into this movie, it's more a realistic base, right? Everything's grounded within a reasonable explanation. Here's a fun fact I want to point out for reasonable explanation, because I was going to talk about it later on too, but I'll bring it up. Can't really see it that well in this scene here, but Sherry Moon, who's actually the wife of Rob Zombie. Many fans already know that, but just in case, that's actually the wife of Rob Zombie. She's in a lot of his movies. But she's actually a very tall actress. And it's kind of funny. This is how much attention to detail for the backstory they try to do for Michael. Zombie explained that he casted his wife for the mother because he was going to cast her for something else, but he wanted to cast her for the mother because she wants Michael to have a reason of why he's so tall, right?
He's a freaking giant.
Another fun fact too is that William Forsythe, I think you'll see later on too, because he's like in like casts, right? He's really effed up at this point. We don't know why, but he's like in, I think, a double arm cast, and he has a leg cast too. We'll see later on. But in real life, though, during the filming of this movie, he actually broke his leg. I don't know how or why he broke his leg, right? But he broke his leg, and it was actually perfect for his character because he was originally written to have just only an arm cast. So they incorporated him to have that leg, but we never got to see him fully stand up. We've only seen him ever just sit down, right? Like we only see him like this scene right here. We'll see him later on in just a little bit too on a recliner, but we don't really see him standing. So, and clearly he's not really the father of Michael too. He's supposedly like a stepfather, from what I can understand, but they were trying to give that backstory about like how Michael's so tall. So like they're again trying to ground things in realism, trying to create this like I wouldn't say like Jeffrey Dahmer-esque kind of a thing or whatnot, but just trying to like base it off like, like how a killer comes to be in a sense. And that's, I mean, it's an interesting approach to this, and I like it kind of going back to how Carpenter says make it your own. So that's what Zombie is doing. He's making it his own. At the same time, too, I totally get where a lot of fans get frustrated or get pissed off at this movie because they want Michael to be this no rhyme, no reason kind of a killer. They want him to be pure evil. So taking something that's unknown, this mystifying kind of thing, and then bringing it down to our level of understanding and rational and reasoning, I can see where people get upset about that. It kind of like takes away that, the spookiness, the scariness about this person or this entity. So that's my 2 cents on that.
For me, it creates this disconnect as a viewer because when you watch the original Halloween movie, there's no questions that are answered. And I like that because it creates that mystery. Why did Michael kill his sister? I don't know. Why does he chase Laurie through the entire rest of the movie? I don't know. Like, why does he do something as goofy as taking her tombstone and setting it up the way that he did? I don't know. He's just doing it because that's who he is. That is his job description. That is his mission in life, is to be evil and to kill. And I love that. That to me, that's like the funnest thing, was when you don't have all your questions answered, when you're left wanting, going, but why did they do it? I guess we'll never know. And that's what it is. It kind of leaves you with this tease of just, you'll never know. And that's the fun part. You'll never get to know why they did what they did. Which is essentially like, look, what are they doing, right? They're committing the ultimate sin. They're killing people. They're ending people's lives. That's the ultimate thing. That the worst thing you can do is end somebody's life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that there's no reason behind it makes it that much scarier, because that's what you're trying to achieve at the end of the day. You're trying to create something that's scary. And to me, scary doesn't just mean, a quick jump scare and I go, oh God, she got me. No, the scary part is not knowing, right? Because that's the scariest thing in the world, is not knowing something, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's life after death? We don't know. That's horrifying. That's scary as hell. But if you start putting, well, it's because you do it, and the reason the moment you start giving them a reason is when the viewer starts going, oh, well, he deserved that. He deserved to die because of what happened to Michael. Oh, well, that person clearly, you don't start rooting for everyone's survival. You start rooting for the killer, and that's weird. Yeah, I don't think you should get to the point where you start rooting for. I mean, it's fun if they're a fun killer. I think you'll naturally do
I think it's
that,
a different
right?
story with those ones, because it's like, what you're watching, so you're watching it for that fact of the matter. So it's like a different thing. It's not like a normal one. But it's kind of funny when you talk about the humanizing part, because Zombie's previous movie, which was a Devil's Rejects, it kind of, despite all the horrible things you see in the movie, and we follow our main characters, which are killers, it kind of makes you sympathetic, especially towards the very end of the movie. So it's like, and it's kind of funny coming into this one, and we're trying to take that approach, but we're now expanding on that. We're giving this huge origin story, right? And then try to do that. So I was like, yeah, I kind of see like where Zombie's going with that one, utilizing something from a previous one itself too.
Yeah, it just I especially when watching this film almost right after from watching the original one, it just created this huge disconnect of like, you're getting me from going, oh man, this guy's really scary. We better keep rooting for our main characters. The whole purpose of this movie was, let's feel bad for Michael. Let's make him a real person so that when he does go on his insane killing rampage, we're not scared anymore, right? We're not scared of what he's going to do next. All you're really doing is going, oh, well, they deserve it. They had it coming. The whole movie turns into Chicago, they had it coming. And that's not fun to watch. When you start giving the purpose, or you start giving the killer the purpose of why is he killing? It's because of XYZ. And that's what this entire scene at the very beginning of the movie, first of all, I mean, I might jump ahead a little bit here. This movie is 2 hours long, right?
Yeah.
The origin part is the first hour. I clocked this while I was watching it.
Yeah, no, you're right. Because the funny thing about this, originally, when Zombie approached producers, the Weinstein brothers, Weinstein brothers. Yeah, I can't remember the Weinsteins. Basically, he approached them and he wanted to do two movies. He wanted to make a prequel movie doing all of this right and explaining it, and then the second movie is to be the remake. They did
It,
not like the idea whatsoever. They told them scrap that, make it into one movie, and that's what Zombie did. It's funny enough, it's quite literally two movies packed into one.
and forget the horror, forget from a filmmaking perspective, it's boring to watch. It's so boring because you're sitting there the whole time going, okay, so they're creating this backstory where they're trying to explain what happened to Michael. Why is he doing what he's doing? Let's make him a grounded character. But it takes an hour to get back to Haddonfield. That to me, that just it takes way too long. At that point,
Yeah, I agree.
I would say that the viewer is already disinterested. They're like, okay, whatever. Yeah, he's a killer because his parents were mean. Like,
If anything though, like it does give us more time with Michael. And, like if we try to take to the step of establishing a character, it does give us the more time with Michael than we've ever gotten in any previous movie. Plus or minus, depending on how you want to look at that one, but it does develop him as a character, and especially develops him for furthermore in the movie. So, just kind of going along too with the scene itself. So we got the whole build up. We find out about Michael's family, and mom's a stripper in a sense, and dad's the scumbag and all that jazz like that. So other than that, we move along and we kind of get a little bit of his school life, right? He goes to school, and then we see these two douchebag bullies or whatnot. He's trying to take a piss. He comes out and they bully him, telling him like his mom's like a stripper and all that jazz like that, trying to insult him. They get in a little bit of a scuffle. I think that's the principal. I can't remember if that's the principal or not. Comes by, he scolds them all, breaks up the fight. Then Michael, for whatever the reason, just tells the principal to fuck you, basically, and it's like, okay. So Michael gets in trouble for cussing at the principal despite getting his ass beat by bullies. I believe one of the bullies actually does mention he gets in bigger trouble or not. But afterwards, we get to the principal's office where the principal does call over Sherry Moon's, I forgot Sherry Moon's character's name, but Michael's mother to the office. They had a conversation. Again, we kind of see a little bit of her character. She's not exactly vile, but she is who she is. And we're finally introduced to Dr. Loomis, who's played by Malcolm McDowell. This is something I kind of thought was kind of a cool thing too, because I actually like Malcolm McDowell as an actor. He's usually kind of like almost like Shakespeare, but he can also make fun of himself. He can have a little bit of light moments. But one thing I found was really, really unique, because usually like I would think like when you're playing you're in a remake or you're doing something, like, you kind of like want to research about your character, right? You want to look into that, right? So apparently, coming into this movie, Malcolm McDowell has never seen the original Halloween. So he's literally playing Dr. Loomis unknowingly of how Donald Pleasence, who played the original Dr. Loomis in the original movie, no idea how to play it. I almost want to call shenanigans, but at the same time, I can believe it, because when we get more screen time with him, he's not the Loomis that we're familiar with, How Pleasence is always talking very ominously and very philosophically about Michael. We don't get that much with Malcolm McDowell. So it's like, I generally like a lot of his acting, but this movie, he just felt very okay. I'll point it out later on too, but just the appearance of all, but we kind of get a little bit about him. But just off the bat, right? Because this is the earlier years. What did you think about McDowell's Loomis compared to Pleasence?
So this may come as a bit of a surprise to you, especially considering what you just said.
Ooh.
He's the reason this movie is not absolute crap. I think he's the best part of this entire film.
Dang.
I think Michael McDowell saves this movie from becoming absolute shit. Especially after watching the original one very recently, so it was still very fresh in my mind. I would even reach out and say that he did a better job of playing Loomis than the original guy did.
Really? Okay, so
because we do get more time with Loomis, because in the original one, he is a part of the story, right? And you do see him in instances, but he's only on screen for all of like a couple of minutes at a time when he is on screen. And all you really learn of the original Doctor was, I took care of Michael, and he is evil, and I know that he's up to no good. So wherever he is, we gotta got him. In this one, he kind of tries to explore him a little more, right? Because they're doing the origin, yada yada. But the acting that McDowell presents, I mean, this guy's no amateur when it comes to horror stuff, right? He may have not seen the original Halloween, but I mean, come on, we're talking about the guy who played the lead character in freaking Clockwork Orange.
Yep.
Like, this guy knows his stuff. He knows that he can be this terrifying guy, like he was in Clockwork Orange, but then he is just this grounded, real character who lends his sympathy very well, and it shows very well in the movie. You know, as soon as I saw him, and I was like, oh snap, it's Michael McDowell. All right, I didn't know he was Loomis, and he was a treat from beginning to the end of the movie. You know, he is just the perfect Loomis. He is the character that he knows Michael, and he knows he's trouble. He knows that he's not completely evil, and he still tries to redeem him. And he still tries to even, you know, a little spoilers, he still tries to be like the redemption, like, oh, he's trying to save Michael, even almost up to the end of the movie, because he knows that he still sees that little boy that he saw at the very beginning of the film. Even though now he's like this 8-foot giant killer man, you know. I think McDowell is easily the best part of this movie, and Loomis in this movie is my favorite character.
All right, well spoken. Because I think for me, when I think of Donald Pleasence, because I've seen the other movies, he's very much more prevalent in the other movies. So, like, my imagery or my thoughts about Loomis, or how Pleasence has always played Loomis, has always been like paramount. For me, when it came to McDowell, he did have quite a bit more scenes than I'm thinking about, because like we see a lot more in the origin portions, right? And we don't see him as much later on in the movie, not as much, right? And I always felt like
he kind of does the same thing where he pops it for a couple minutes, and you're like, oh yeah, what's going on with Loomis? Where's he at this point of the story? And that's about it.
That's the one thing that kind of frustrated me, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in the later portions of the movie. But just as like it's this screen time I felt, and they portray him in a little bit of a different light when we get to our time skip. But let's go ahead and move along here too. So I'm trying to see where I'm at in my notes. Oh yeah. So here at this point, Loomis now is talking with all three of them. Then he talks with the mother more specifically. He's like, "Yeah, I want to talk to you. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. Your child is interesting, and it's trying to be very gentle with the mom, but very forthcoming." And then starts showing a lot of these photos, which we don't actually see it. It's kind of like it's one of those golden suitcase moments, right, where we don't see it, and everyone kind of revels in what it is, and it's kind of it has a little bit of horror, in my opinion, to that one. There's like all these mutilations of animals and stuff like that, and mommy's denying my little Mikey can't do this. As they are talking about this, Michael overhears it, and it sounds more apparent that they might want to step it up from, you know, trying to stop Michael from doing some terrible thing. So Michael ends up going on the run. He's on the lam a little bit, just a little bit. Runs from school. I thought the scene was kind of a little bit hokey, because as he starts running, it does play the Carpenter music theme song for Halloween, right? I swear to God, when I watch this, like, are you serious? Is this where we're gonna play the whole dee 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 dee? And like, really, this is where we're gonna play it here? I'm like, I expect this to be playing in a more menacing scene, other than a kid running away from school.
Look, I gotta say, and I appreciate the fact that they included John Carpenter's score, right? Because it's an iconic score. Like, especially if we're in the month of October, it's Halloween time, right? I'll be blasting that in my car, and it's a jam. It is a bop. The way that they use that song in this movie was completely just the worst way to do it. Like, every time I heard it, I was like, really? Right now? Is this when we're doing this? The scene included, when you start hearing the ding, 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 you're like, wait, what? No. Why? No, why? This is not... Dude, pick your spots. This ain't one of them.
Like, it's sort of like, it's supposed to be ominous because it's Michael rising and stuff like that. And I'm like, no. They do play it in a more appropriate portion in this movie, but no, not here. This is not appropriate. No.
It was very strange. It's almost like doing like the Hey, did you forget you were watching a Halloween? Let me press the button on my audio mixer. Ding, 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 ding. It's like, okay, dude, like, no, pick your spots. This is not one of them. And again, it pulls you back as a viewer because instead of immersing you into this origin story that they're trying to paint for you, now it's like, hey, remember Halloween? Remember this jam? Ridge Racer. Remember that one? It's so stupid. I hate it. I have issues with this movie.
Oh man. As we move along, though, Michael now, well, before him, he kind of watches this douchebag bully who kind of like intimidates people as he goes, and he's kind of like, you hear that. This is where I thought the Michael music would have been better if it was played later on, not like as he was running away, but he's just sizing up this bully. He's watching him, just kind of stalking him from afar. That's gonna be my next kill, or like that's gonna be my first kill, or step up, I guess, from animals, right? And so a bully goes into this wooded area, and Michael just comes out of nowhere with a giant freaking branch and just pelts him in the leg first, brings him down, and just beats the ever living crap out of him. And so, of course, by the end of this scene here, he does kill the bully, and this marks the first kill of the entire movie. Which is a little bit different. Hold on a second. Which is a little bit different here because the first kill in the original Halloween movie was his sister Judith. You know, the very first scene where we see Michael going up to the stairs in his POV, stabbing his sister and whatnot. This breaks the original. So I want to ask you more specifically, because I mean, I have my thoughts on it, but what about you? What do you think about this whole breakaway from, you know, the original kill, which was his sister, that which starts off Michael's little rampage? We now started off with a bully that I felt kind of deserved it.
I hate it. I hate this entire scene from beginning to end. All of this entire whole school. First of all, I feel bad because, like, you know, he used to be a really good kid, but those Spy Kids movies ruined him. I hate it. This whole entire scene didn't need to exist. You didn't need to see. I didn't need to see Michael killing a person to know that he's evil. He's freaking Michael Myers, and this is, I mean, like, look, in the context of the film, this is a wasted kill. Okay, this is the Smash Brothers character that didn't need to be in the game. This is a wasted slot of a kill. Okay, I understand. Again, they're obviously doing this to frame it so that to put him as a grounded character in the reality that is hollow. Whatever. He kills this guy because he was mean to him. Go, yay, cool. That's awesome. Obviously, and well, and you know what the thing is, and like I'm not going to go into this too deeply, but and I just might be talking out of my ass, but it kind of creates this dangerous precedent of like, now remember, kids, if you get bullied in school, it's totally okay to kill them. Like, what? It's like sending the wrong message. Like, obviously, this guy's got a lot of issues in his head, right? But it's, I don't know. This whole scene just didn't need to exist. This whole, like, yeah, he's a killer. I know he's a killer, but why did he go after? Why was this the first one? Right? It's like
That's my thoughts.
It's like, why have McDonald's when you know you're going to a 5-star restaurant in a few minutes here? You know?
I mean, like, the only thing I could think about when I was watching this, and as it leads up to the other ones as well here too, it was again trying to like justify. So it's like, oh, we're trying to be sympathetic, and it's like, oh yeah, it's the bully that bullied him, and the kid was an absolute d-bag. And I would almost say he kind of deserved it because he seemed like something that would have been an absolute shit his entire life. But at the same time, it's not. I'm not justifying killing or anything like that. But like, it's just like they're trying to justify it for Michael. Like, oh, it's supposed to be kind of like that sympathetic kill. Like, yeah, rooting for Michael, but at the same time, no, don't do that. That's bad.
Yeah, it makes sense in the context of the film, right? Because we understand that Michael is this not okay guy. There's obviously some stuff going on in his life. He's you know, reacting appropriately given the context that we're given. Is that he's got a bad life at home, and now he's lashing out, so he's taking out his anger because at first, yeah, he doesn't retaliate against his family at first. And it's after he's gotten that, you know, that taste for blood where now he's like, okay, I like this. Now I know how to do it a little better. And then he goes, you know, he goes and does his Halloween thing.
Yeah.
But this first kill just doesn't make that much sense. Like,
and Here's
why this random kid? Because we saw him 5 minutes ago bullying you? Like, what about the other kid? You didn't kill him. What the hell?
And here's the thing too, because like in the original, right, him killing his sister kind of set a precedence, like kind of like a setup that he's wanting to kill his family members, right? Like this, it's like a no rhyme or reason, but we do know that he's trying to just off his family in the original. Here is like
Right.
he just starts killing, and then now he went. I mean, other than people who have wronged him, which I'm gonna complain about in a scene later on in this movie, but just setting it up. It seems like it's trying to set him up for attacking people that had wronged him in his life, right?
Right. And this is what the issue that I was talking about earlier is that by this point, especially by this point, you stop taking the approach of, oh man, this guy's going to be scary. We better keep an eye on him too. Oh yeah. Now it becomes like a revenge story.
Yeah.
Right. Where it's like, now the main character isn't Laurie. Now the main character is Michael. And the character of Michael, you feel sympathetic towards him because people have wronged him. Because that's the train of thought, the viewer goes, I think every viewer who watches movie or any human being honestly has this innate sense of we want to see, justice demands that retribution, like in Hearthstone, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to see the people who are, the people who are wronging him to get their comeuppance. We want to see him get his just desserts, right? But then you remember that he's Michael freaking Myers. He's the killer of the movie.
You're not supposed to root for him.
You're not supposed to root for him, but that's how this entire setup is. Your entire set. I mean, look, I'm jumping a little bit ahead here. That's literally why they created Danny Trejo's character. And
yeah. Okay. All right. Here. Let's scoot ahead so that way we can get to that, because that's what I was going to talk about too. That
God. Damn it, man.
I'm gonna save that one. So we're gonna move along. So after he kills the bully, right? I do want to say that this was a pretty savage beating, although we don't see a whole lot of it directly, but it's a pretty savage beating itself. But moving along, bully dead.
Yeah, Zombie kind of restrained himself a little bit there. I was like, dude,
yeah, because
way hard.
So speaking technical by shot wise, we see the hits, but we don't see it always directly on there. It's like kind of like very, again, shaky cam, very visceral, very like in your face. We're like directly, like we're seeing a close up of Mikey right here, and then we can see a close up of the bully, but we don't see like the overall like lapse of hits or whatnot. So it's just very, again, in your face, very intense kind of a thing, right? But
oh my gosh, I forgot the whole thing. The whole thing with the masks. I was
going to talk about that a little bit too, but we'll get there in just a moment. But after Mikey kills the bully, he comes, like, we literally cut to him back at home, and Daddy Dearest is like calling Michael all kinds of stuff or whatnot, being an ever so great dad and very loving, calling him all kinds of names. I don't want to repeat it in here. Don't want to get in trouble necessarily.
That's what I was talking about at the beginning of the film. It's just, man, this movie aged like milk in that political correctness kind of environment that we're in now.
Yeah.
But my God, he goes into like, even at the beginning breakfast scene, he goes from like transphobic to like homophobic.
He literally, one quote I remember, he's like, "Woman, I will skull fuck you." And I forgot what was the context or whatnot, but he's like, damn.
Just the whole thing, yeah, just like, domestic abuser over here. Just, this guy's the worst character in the movie.
Yes, and it goes right up there again. Like, it's like the sympathetic kill, right? What you would want to say is a justified kill, even though it's wrong, right? But it's the justified, right? Fun fact: the movie that they're watching on, the movie that he has on the TV, and we kind of see it later on in the movie too, is the Thing from Outer Space, the original. I think it's like 1940s or 1940s, 1930s, or no, 1940s.
And, oh yeah, John Carpenter loves to stroke himself in these movies.
Well, it's not just that. It's an homage, because in the original movie of Halloween, John Carpenter has a thing for the Thing from Outer Space, which he eventually remakes that into the 1982 The Thing. But it's the same movie that the kids were watching in the original movie. Same thing. It's gonna happen later on in the scene too. They also watched a couple. It was like one other horror movie. I couldn't tell what it was. I thought it was 13 Ghosts, but I wasn't too sure. Or House on Haunted Hill. I can't remember which one. But moving on. So I'm gonna make sure I'm not getting too ahead of myself here. Yes. So we get a little bit more family moments, right? So Michael is getting like shit talked by his dad, and then Michael wants to go out and trick or treat. So mommy comes around and tries to pull their sister to, hey, go take Michael out to go trick or treat. She says, okay, I'll do it for you, mom. Mom blasts off to go to her job. And I can't show it here too, but I swear to God, I don't know any real factoids on this one or not, but I swear every single time Zombie loves to put his wife Cheryl on screen and lets her like either dance or be like semi-naked and stuff like that. It's like he likes to trophy his wife up. Not saying it's like wrong or anything, but I swear to God he likes doing it. They're fun to watch. I'm not gonna lie, but I swear to God, just loves to trophy his wife up there.
It was really weird because she was fully clothed in her like stripper scene or whatever. She had like, yeah, she was fully covered up, and I was like, I read up on it after the fact, and I was like, huh, apparently she flaunts her stuff way more often in other movies. So that
Yep.
was a weird decision.
And I think it's just because they wanted to show her to be a little bit more. It's weird because she's a strip dancer, and they're trying to make her more of a modest character, and it makes sense, right? I don't know the mentality of like what the thought about nudity and whatnot, which does come play later on in the movie, but we do get this kind of like tender scene between mommy and Michael. And I swear to God, when I was watching this, I don't know your familiarity with the Friday the 13th movies, but for me, I kind of got this like huge like Pamela and Jason Voorhees kind of a vibe. Not that she's gonna tell Jason to go kill or tell Michael to go kill, but like, she's trying to like give him some love, like as a parent, right? So I kind of got like this, a lot of this like mommy killer vibes, mommy and killer vibes, not mommy killer.
Yeah, I mean, this scene didn't make sense to me either because, I mean, just a few hours earlier, the guy got in trouble and was even recommended a child psychologist. Why the hell would she just be so cool of like, oh yeah, go trick or treating, kiddo? I'd have been like, boy, you are grounded. You ain't leaving this house at all. What are you talking about? You want to go trick or treating?
I think
Like,
it's a little bit of like mommy's little dearest, right? It's like I don't know if it's I see
I'm
this with
sure
some
that's what it
families in
is.
like
That's what it
in
felt
my
like.
with my in-laws too, like the loving of the son, right? Or valuing of the son. So I wonder whether or not, like, even though Michael's been doing all the troubles, maybe she's trying to give him the love and then all the attention so that way he doesn't go in a bad path. Maybe like the sister is an example too, even though she's not really that bad from what we can see in the movie, but maybe she's trying to gear Michael towards a different direction with love and care, essentially, is what it is. But I'm not too sure. We don't really dive too much into that because soon after this, mommy leaves, of course, goes strip teasing, and sister says, "Okay, Mike, bye." Wait, aren't you gonna take me to trick or treating? No, I'm gonna have my boyfriend here, and we're gonna bang it out. So peace, have fun, no trick or treating. And literally, we're left with Michael on the step stool, and I'm literally gonna say this at this point. I'm gonna call it. Candy is what inspires killers. Okay.
Yeah. They don't want those
It's not
cavities. So
years of repressive bad memories or terrible parenting and shitty parents and stuff like that. It's candy. Because
have you ever had a circus peanut? Makes me want to kill too. Come on now.
I mean, I
No,
swear,
but like,
if the sister took Michael out to go get candy, do you think he would have gone on the rampage he did that night?
let's watch that movie. Can we watch that movie where that happens? It ends in 20 minutes. Well, he got his candy and he was like, well, I guess my sister's not that bad. And it's happily ever after. I think the thing that pissed me off the most, funny enough, wasn't even like the sister going just being, this whole family sucks. You know why? Because something that dawned on me was the fact that, mom goes to work, dad's, he's kind of stranded because, he's disabled. Sister goes up and does, there's a baby in this house. There's just a straight up baby, just completely just. Who's taking care of the baby?
It's a good question because the dad clearly hated her at the beginning. All she ever does is wah, wah, wah. And it's like, okay, so mom went to go striptease. Sister is banging the boyfriend. Dad's lazing out on the lazy boy recliner. Who is taking care of the baby?
Like, if you're expecting me to believe that the baby's just gonna sleep, and there's, first of all, you got to supervise a baby even if they're sleeping. You got to be like baby monitor, camera on them, like all this crap. If you're expecting me to believe that the father, the way that he's already been framed as a doesn't give a shit about his family type of guy. If you're really expecting me to watch this movie and believe, oh, well, there's a baby in the house, the dad's going to take care of the baby, or the sister's going to watch this baby, you're out of your freaking mind, because that's not happening. Not at all.
And so we got the scene here though. Michael's sitting down. He's also eating candy, and it's kind of funny because I was like thinking about candy when I was watching it. Like he was eating, like you mentioned, a circus peanut actually, and I actually hate circus peanuts. I don't care for them, but I like candy corn. So I was like, things like okay, so there's all kinds of candy out there. Like what was a good candy back then? I'm trying to think, like, is like back in the day, right? It's like for some odd reason when I was watching this movie, I was thinking it's under like the 1970s kind of a thing, because that's what we were seeing in the original movie, if I'm not mistaken, like some candy. But I don't know. It's like the whole candy aspect too. It's like I'm gonna bring it up. Spencer, what's your favorite old school candy?
That's a good. Well, okay. Well, two of my favorite candies, like I guess the top three, the three candies that reign supreme in my book, have always been, in no particular order. My top three candies have always been Kit Kats, Reese's peanut butter cups, and gummy anything, gummy worms, gummy bears, doesn't matter. Those are my top three candy things. Everything else was fine, but they were like low tier garbage to me if it wasn't one of those.
I mean, back in the day, like, so it was like modern, like trick or treating. It was like Reese's, Snickers, and I can't tell between like sweet tarts or gummies. I like gummies a lot too, because I never like gummy lifesavers is the ones I always remembered. And then I'm like thinking like old school candy. Like I love candy corn still, and then Tootsie Rolls. Something about fucking Tootsie Rolls. I love them still to this day.
See, I like Tootsie Rolls, but I like the flavor ones, right? The ones that weren't the chocolate kind of ones.
I like the chocolate ones. I like the flavor ones. Flavor ones are good too, but I love the chocolate ones. Something about the chocolate ones.
I love those Tootsie Rolls. If you give me those, like the vanilla or the lemon lime or the blue one, I want to say whatever those ones were. Those were great. The chocolate ones are fine, but those other ones that was my shit.
And I want to make sure I'm not jumping too ahead here. Okay, so yeah. After the scene here, Michael goes into a furious rampage, and he goes on a killing spree. He kills Daddy first, he kills the boyfriend second, and then he comes after his sister. In the scene that I have right here, when he's coming up to his sister, who is bare chest naked, basically, he comes across the boyfriend's mask, which he was like kind of like dicking around earlier on, and it's the infamous Michael mask, or the melted William Shatner face, however you want to look at it, right? But he comes across the mask, and for some odd reason, because Michael loves to hide behind a mask, he kind of like, he doesn't talk about it just yet, but he likes to hide behind a mask, and he puts away the clown mask, and he puts on the titular, melted William Shatner mask on. And then he proceeds to stab his sister afterwards. I mean, he kind of messes with her a little bit, and then goes proceeding with the killings here. Thus completing kind of the origin story for Michael a little bit. Let me make sure we're not getting too far out. Yeah, so after he kills his sister, he sits outside, very similar to the original movie again too. But this time he's sitting outside with his baby sister. Mommy comes back home from strip teasing and goes like, "What's going on, Michael? Give me the baby." And as she goes upstairs, we get to kind of like a montage of sequences and sounds. Very much a lot of sounds. A lot of police sirens, mommy screaming and crying, police and news chatter all over the place. And we get I think I have it right here. Nope. We get a pretty cool, awesome pan. I actually like this pan shot of coming to Michael sitting in the car itself. And then we do get a transition out to like 11 months time skip. But before we do that, that literally encapsulates the like kind of like that beginning portion, right? Which starts off Michael. In the original movie, it was the first five minutes, if I'm not mistaken, or I think it was like 5 or 8 minutes. The first minutes of the movie, right? Where Michael originally goes upstairs to go kill his sister. But now everything's kind of jumbled up, everything's changed up, and the origins of things have changed up too. So let me ask you a couple of things here, Spencer. How did you feel about Michael coming across his mask?
I hated it. I hated every part of it. Because it's like, come the like, come on, dude. Why does even the mask have an origin story now? Like, where did the mask come from? It came from the brother or the boyfriend who. It's where, as in the original, it was just a mask that he stole. He just stole a mask. He just found a freaking mask and he stole it and he put it on his damn stupid face. And that was cool. Right? And this one, it's like, okay, haha, we get it. I hated it. I the whole thing with the masks in general, because he ends up wearing like all these masks, throughout the movie.
I
Obviously,
feel like it's
leading up to this one.
we're gonna call this a Legends of Halloween Michael's mask.
Like, I don't know. It tried to, what? Honestly, I think it was something that like it bothered me a lot while I was watching it. It tried to be too cute with the idea with the masks, right? Because it was this whole
Oh
thing
yeah.
of like, why is he wearing a mask? Because he's hiding his real self to the world. Her. And it's
Well,
just like, don't be cute with it, dog. Just give me Halloween. And it just takes, at this point, I think we're like 30 minutes into the movie already, and even that's too long. And
yeah,
it's not even over.
actually I think it's a 30 to 40 minute mark almost, actually, at this point. So for me, when I had watched this, I thought it was kind of like, I get that he likes masks, and like the masks we'll later on find out in just a little bit in the next slide is that it's his true face or something like that. So he finds the mask and is like, this is my true face and I'm gonna put it on. It's basically it. I didn't like how they again, we kind of get these sympathetic kills, right? It goes from the father, who's an absolute scumbag, and then it goes to the boyfriend, who's absolutely fucking neutral. Like, yeah, I mean, he did kind of gear the sister towards, banging it out, but it's not like he had any vendetta or anything wronging Michael necessarily. I mean, he indirectly wronged Michael, but that's it. And then his sister, who did wrong Michael, right? So we're getting that whole like troping of whoever wrongs Michael, you're gonna get the knife. I'm telling you, just gave the kid some candy and he would just not stab people.
I don't know.
Michael kills for peanuts. Circus peanuts.
It's the one thing that I have just an overall issue with this film, is that creating this origin story just peels away so much of the mystique and what I feel is the real horror of this killer is the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And building this whole thing up, even to this point, because I honestly thought if it had stopped here with the origin story thing, and then it just said like 15 years later, that would have been cool, right? Where you start seeing, Haddonfield again. You get to, the whole thing with Laurie. That would have been cool, but they don't. And it keeps freaking going with this origin story shit. And at this point, I was like pulling out my hair of like, are we done with this part yet? Like, what more do we really need to see to frame that this kid is evil? We get it. He killed a schoolyard bully for seemingly no reason, and then he just murdered his whole damn family other than the mom and the baby. Like, can we get to that point already? But no.
That was the one thing that bothered me too. Like, and now I'm like thinking about it as of right now. It's like it's not even part of my notes too. It's like in the original movie, Michael kind of just killed whoever, but he was primarily targeting his family members, right?
Well, and at that point, you couldn't even really build. All we knew really was that he killed his sister in cold blood, and that he just happened to come across this one girl in town, and that was just, yep, that's the one I'm going after. It wasn't even family at that point. It was just a random person. It was just Laurie Strode.
No,
random person.
It was it was not random, because in the original movie, I remember right, he was intentionally going after his sister. I don't know how he found out he had a sister, but he found out he had a sister because he, remember we'll see it later on too, he brings the tombstone of his sister, Here Lies Judith Myers, right? And that's where he places on one of Laurie's friends. Oh. Right, hey, honey.
But that's what I'm saying.
All right, I'm gonna continue. Sorry, Pam just got back home, but no worries, we can continue.
No, that's fine. But I mean, in the context of that film, all the absolute truths that we know is that Michael Myers killed his sister, right? Reason unknown. 15 years or whatever it was, he escapes from the asylum and he goes back home to his childhood home. He's not going after anyone in particular, right? He just happens to come across Laurie, and that's who he's targeting. Like, yeah, in the sequel or whatever, Laurie's a sister, yada, yada, whatever. We don't know that as the viewer when we're just watching the first one at this point. We just know that this is Laurie Strode, random babysitter, because that's what he was framed as. He was the babysitter killer, right?
That's true, because especially they use that nickname in the later movies. He's the babysitter killer. That's right.
All we really know is that he went over his sister, killed her. What was she doing? She was babysitting Michael. Later on, he goes back to his childhood home. What do we know about Laurie? She babysits kids. And what are the other people that get killed in the first movie? I forget her name already, but the annoying girl who got stuck in some laundry, whatever, also babysitting, right? So that is the real truth that we know, is that he's not going after family members. I think they hammed it up when they did the sequel, and they were like, "Oh, Laurie was the sister."
No, yeah, definitely in the second movie they really brought that out. I could swear they did something in the original, but again, it's been forever since I've seen the
original movie. All we really know is that he's seemingly going after random targets, and the only real thing that they have in common is that they're babysitters. And again, even at that point, why did he go after the babysitters? I don't know. And that is the mystique. That is Michael Myers. That was the cool, just like, what the hell? Like, why was he just going after babysitters? I don't know, but he was pretty scary while he was doing it. And in this movie, he goes after the people who wronged him, who made him feel like shit, who made him be the killer that he is today. And that's really like, I get it. I understand it. It makes sense in the context of how they're framing this. Is people do you wrong? Well, what do? You kill them, or you get your justice.
That's a justified answer, right? Just kill him.
Yeah, you do what do you get? Your revenge, right? And in Michael's mind, it's not just beating them up or whatever. It's killing them. It's ending their life. It's creating the ultimate sin of ending someone's life. And again, at this point in the movie, even though it's already way too long in this origin story, all they really had to do to kind of move the pacing along from a filmmaking perspective, I'm not even talking about Halloween, from a film perspective, they needed to pick up the pace, because at this point, 20, 30 minutes is like, okay, all right, I get it. But they kept going with the origin story. And it was like, what? What do you mean? And if it was like another 10 minutes, sure. Right, but this creeps on for another
30 minutes.
Like 30 minutes.
So we're 30 minutes in, I think, and then it's another 20 more minutes, or 35 minutes in, and we're 15 minutes. I can't remember.
Too long.
That reminded me one more thing too, and this one actually, as a fan, frustrated me more. But then again, after understanding the context of like, hey, make it your own, right? The one thing that did frustrate me about this entire sequence is that what made me liked about the original, that first 5 to 8 minutes, right? It's through Michael's POV, right? We see it through his eyes of him like going about committing the murder of his sister, right? We don't get any POV shots whatsoever. Even though Michael is our main character at this point, because it's established since the beginning he's the main character, but we lost out on those POV shots that are I feel is very iconic. Aside from that too, it was kind of weird because you can see in the scene right here, he's not wearing the Michael mask. He's wearing the clown mask. Now, when I first watched this, I was like, WTF, he just put on the Michael mask, right? Why is he putting on the clown mask again? Why?
Yeah, the whole thing with the mask, just kind of like, I feel like it was an idea that somebody came up with during pre-production or during writing, and they just never fleshed it out. They just thought it would be cute of like, oh, Michael wears all these faces, right? Because he's the gentle Michael, the horrifying Michael, the sweet Michael,
the goofy
sad Michael. And it's like, on paper, I feel like it works, but not how this movie's presenting itself.
And I'm going to give it this much, though. At least with him coming back with the clown mask instead of the Michael mask, it is a little bit of an homage to the original, because in the original, the clown mask is what he originally had when he killed his sister. That was it, right? So it didn't make sense that he would have the Michael mask, but like, why did we show this in the beginning, right? It will be important later on, but I mean, right now it's like, why? One more thing too. I hated this so much. The reporter, like, so you kind of hear like the montage sequence, and like the reporters like talking about the murder and stuff like that, and then the reporter says like, the young Michael Myers stabbed his sister 17 times. I counted that almost. Not all the way counted because I got lazy, right? But I counted. That was not 17 times he stabbed his sister. Like, we saw him at most like stab his sister like 4 or 5 times, and I was like, is it just, again, like BS newsing, or just trying to make it far more than what we actually saw on the screen? I don't know, but that just, it irked me when like stating the fact of the matter when it's not the fact of the matter.
I kind of recall that. I think at that point I was just getting so frustrated with the movie's pacing that I was just like ignoring almost every little thing from there. I was just like, "Come on, man, just get me to Haddonfield." We're like 15 years later, but no, we didn't. We don't get that.
But instead of 15 years later, we do get another time. Well, we get our first time skip in the movie, and it's an 11-month time skip. We find out that he's in the Haddonfield mental asylum. I believe that's what it is. I can't remember. And we get a lot of these, not montages, but like a lot of these sequence shots between Michael and Dr. Loomis, Michael and his mother. We find out a little bit more about Michael. Like Michael says, Michael's mom goes like, "Take off your mask." Like, "No, I don't want to take off my mask. This is my face. This is what I feel comfortable in." We also find out like Michael's like kind of like BSing about he didn't remember about killing his sister or anything like that. Like in the scene right here with Loomis. And this is the things that I kind of like too, because in the original movie we didn't get this with Loomis, right? We don't get him talking it over with Michael or actually doing his sessions with Michael. We also didn't get that little moments where he's actually communicating with the parents, or in this case, the mother. So I thought those are kind of like nice tie-ins and adding in. But the nicest thing in the entire world. Oh wait, I forgot. Here's the other sequence here with the mom here taking care of being motherly, loving. Right. The nicest thing about the movie here is that we get introduced to Danny freaking Trejo, one of the nicest characters in this entire movie. Like he is like literally the sunflower in a dumpster fire almost, right? And like he's a straight up nice dude. I don't know if you ever had a chance to meet him. He's a really nice guy. Awesome actor too. So we see him in this scene right here. He's just sweeping down. He goes and he talks to Michael, and he kind of has like a real moment because Danny Trejo has been I don't remember prison, but he's been in jail in his past and whatnot. And he's trying to he's almost like talking from his heart, like trying to talk to Michael and be befriending him, right? He's being that other nice character to Michael besides his mother. So I love how we get this introduction with Danny Trejo, but it's like it's a little bit more sincere to how he almost is in real life. So it's like it's really nice and kind of a humbling thing too. I was like, oh, it's so nice of him. But as we continue along with the movie, we find out a little bit more darker things, and dun dun dun. So one Christmas, I don't know when in Christmas, but it's like in December, right? They were having a dinner with Michael, and Mom and Loomis step out to have a further conversation, and the nurse was told they'll keep an eye on Michael. Mommy gives Michael this lovely little photo between him and his baby sister that he remembers ever so lovingly, screaming day in and day out, from what I can understand. The nurse makes a comment about the photo. It's like she wasn't being mean or anything. She was just being nice, like, "Oh, this is a nice little photo." She's trying to make small talk. Michael's not talking to her though, and she just flips over and starts watching the TV. Michael grabs a fork and quite literally tells the nurse to stick it. So, yeah, we get this. I thought it was kind of a weird shot too, because we start off, we watch in live, and then we cut to this camera, and it shows Michael stabbing her in like in the collarbone area, throat area with the fork, and then we get another montage sequence of sirens, the screaming and the panicking and all that jazz. So we know that Michael is no longer sweet little Mikey. We see him slowly slip from being whatever semblance of sweetness, and he starts turning into this dark, boding thing. And then this capsizes everything. Mommy comes across really, really sad and distraught, thinking that we don't get a whole lot. She's sitting down, she's watching a lot of these vintage shots, like something from a Super 8 film of little Mikey with the sister and their family. And as you can see right here, she's holding her little revolver, and decides to end it from there. So it's kind of sad. We kind of end it here with Mommy. I'm trying to be kind about it, right? Trying to say something, but she's just ending it right here. And my first thoughts was, okay, yes, I get it. Michael's not savable. What about your baby? Whatever happened to the freaking baby? You just left it there. She does do the gunshot, and then you hear baby Lori just crying in the background. So I was like, why? I get she wanted to kill herself because she was sad about Michael, but she still had another child to take care of, right? And it kind of brings me back to what I was talking about earlier. This whole, the son, like the son is the star of the family or whatnot, right? And she's trying to be loving and doting over the son, but she still had a baby. But then she just kills herself because the son is truly off the deep end. So to me, I felt that was a kind of like lazy writing, just the off the parent, right? Off the mom, not giving a real good reason behind it.
This whole first act was lazy writing. Are you kidding me? Like, yeah, the whole thing with the scene, I mean, just everything. First of all, it's like the worst psychiatric ward I've ever seen. Who the hell gives like metal spoons and forks and knives to a it doesn't matter what age,
killer.
Like, who provides that? Dude, plastic utensils exist. Even those could probably kill a man. Like, I don't understand. Give them sporks, dude. Like, that might do minimal damage, but it may not kill somebody. I don't know.
Break it off a little bit. You can make it like a half shiv. Apparently, Michael's also super strong too, because he did wield that giant branch. I think it looked almost like it was bigger than him.
It's just stupid. Everything, even up to this point, is just. It's just frustrating. It's like the worst kind of foreplay ever. It's like, all I want to do is get to the point where Michael's being Michael and killing people in Haddonfield. No, we have to suffer through this entire first act of Michael becoming Michael. It's so dumb, and I remember just being super frustrated by this point in the movie, which only gets worse as the movie continues.
Honestly, let me double check. Yeah, we're gonna come to our time skip here, but I like the origin for what it was. I could see a lot of the complaints about it, and I don't necessarily agree with the origin 100%, because again, it humanizes, and so it creates two different types of Michaels, right? The atmospheric Michael versus the unknown, the pure evil versus like a grounded evil, right? So I'm like, I kind of like and I appreciate the origins itself, but I felt like it could have been contained into a movie of its own. And then when we get to the time skip, I'll elaborate a little bit more. So like, what happens after Mommy Dearest offs herself, we get another time skip. So we're finally like at the 50th minute at this point in the movie. And this is a big time skip. So the first one was 11 months. This is a 15-year time skip at this point. And we're introduced again to Danny Trejo. And what I didn't realize at the time, but this is Bill Moseley, which is weird because usually he's a super foul-mouthed, vile like person. Well, he's not in real life. He just portrays that, right? He's a poet with words, vile words. But they're going along and they're gonna go see Michael. And when we see Michael, holy shit. He is a fucking giant, like fee-fi fo fum. What beanstalk did you fall from? I mean, Michael is tall generally in the movies, but this dude was ridiculously tall. So I looked into this a little bit too because I was kind of curious. So apparently his name is Tyler Maine, who goes at a 6'8" height. He originally was like in WCW. I used to watch wrestling, but I've never really watched WCW, so I don't know him that well or like that, but it makes sense with his height because he is freakishly tall. And it kind of goes back to what I was mentioning earlier on with another trivia, which was that when Rob Zombie was casting his wife as Michael's mother, trying to portray like, why Michael's so tall and trying to explain that his mother gave him the genes. I'm like, yeah, she gave him the Amazon genes. The Amazon freakish giant strength genes to give Michael, and damn, he's huge. Very intimidating too, because usually like Michael's already kind of intimidating himself in the movies respectively, but they try to go like Zombie tries to give him a much more of a visceral, like more of a grittier kind of appeal, right? Of course, like we were talking about with the masks, we see a bunch of masks in the room that he has. Not necessarily that any of them look very familiar or not, but some of them could. I couldn't pinpoint down, but apparently some of the masks look very familiar. Like you can kind of see like straight ahead, like to the right of Michael's arm, kind of looks like his original mask. You got some other ones that might look like other horror icons and stuff like that, but I could not confirm like by commentary or not if that was real or like that's the true intent behind those masks. But Yeah, we get a ton of masks for Michael here. We get Bill Moseley mouthing off to him and trying to act big against a actual giant. And then other than that, too, we get another visit with Dr. Loomis. Now, here's a cool thing I liked about this part in this entire scene is that, of course, we had the time skip and the time jump, but I really liked how they really dressed him up. Right? It's like this is more like what he actually looks like. Well, I wouldn't say actually look like in real life, but like what he more commonly looks like, especially at his age. But I like how they try to play it like how he looked a little bit younger as in the origin years, I guess, right? And give him like the long hair and stuff like that, and then they aged him for this part. So I thought that was kind of cool, very nice and unique. He tells Michael, this is the last time I'm going to be seeing you. I've been seeing you for 15 years. You've never spoken a word to me, and at this point, you're my closest and bestest friend, which is pretty fucked up. I thought that was kind of funny. Like, when I first watched this, that kind of floored me a bit because like I wouldn't expect Dr. Loomis to say that to Michael. So like I said, his Loomis is very different, and we kind of even go on furthermore too. Again, I'm skipping along. Is that we see him going about to a high school or is it a college? I couldn't tell, and talking about his newest book regarding Michael. So it's a little bit different from the original Loomis, where Loomis is again more dedicated to his work. More again, when Michael rises, he tries to hunt him down. But this Loomis was more or less like just banking off of his success. He was trying to get away. I totally get it though. Like he's been doing this for 15 years, but it seemed like after whatever books that he'd been writing about Michael has already done and flourished, he is now moving on. So I thought it was very different from like the character that we were from. At least I'm familiar with all the other Halloween movies. But for you, Spencer, how did you feel? I know you were kind of mentioning it earlier on, but we got to this point here. That's what I wanted to talk with Loomis, though, was just kind of like a little bit of a character change. But what did you think about it? Like, do you feel the same way, or how did you think about McDowell's Loomis at this point?
I mean, I just enjoyed him as, you know, I enjoyed his character throughout the film, and I enjoyed the actor portraying the character. It was a little weird because, you know, he's over here telling how like Michael's his best friend. It's like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? Like, that sounds like you're just bad at making friends. What do you mean? Like, you've been doing this crap for 15 years, and he's your closest person. Like, it's almost like a little weird because it's a little like Stockholm syndrome-y a little bit, you know, where it's like, dude, he's your patient. He's your job at the end of the day. You know, you can still go home and be, you know, a husband or a father or a whatever, a friend to somebody else. Why the hell did they make it where he was literally a loner and Michael was his closest friend? That's, to me, that was a little odd. But the way that he portrayed that, just, it made it still enjoy. Even it was stupid, but it was still a little enjoyable to watch.
I always thought it was kind of like a bit of a sarcasm there too. Like maybe he did have other patients, or maybe Michael was the major one, and like everyone else moved on but Michael. But I totally get where he was coming from. I just thought it was a very unique take on Loomis, especially he's never seen the. I don't know if he's seen the original movies at that point or I know he hadn't seen before coming into the movie, but I didn't know if he watched it at that point when he was acting as Loomis, or maybe he never did. But going forward, then, so after he's announced that he's done, they are planning to move Michael out from the asylum. I don't know why. Apparently, there are cut scenes explaining why they were moving Michael out, but that was never in the theatrical cut, which we did watch. So we get some time with these guards here, and they're kind of like shooting this shit a little bit. We kind of get a little bit of an idea of them. Feels very Tarantino-esque with their dialogue. And then, of course, we get to moving Michael out from his cell and moving Michael to wherever destination. And at this point here, I don't know how, because looking at those chains, it looks like you got to have some kind of like Herculean strength, but he breaks out of his chains and he mercilessly kills all four guards, including Bill Moseley. I didn't get a shot of her because the female guard, that's actually Mama Firefly from the Devil's Rejects and House of a Thousand Corpse movies. But she gets one of the more brutal kills. She actually gets like like throat ripped, which I've not seen anything like that since before. Like this is the first time I've seen it. The only other time I've ever seen something like that was like in MacGruber, of all things. So I thought that was like crazy. It was very
God,
whoa.
that's a movie.
It startled me like that kind of a scene where he just like freaking rips her throat. I'm like, whoa, Jesus. It stood out for me at least. After that scene, we get Danny Trejo coming back in because he mentioned earlier when he was talking with Bill Moseley that it's gonna be my last day on the job soon, and he comes in, it's his last day on the job, and lo and behold, he comes in, he finds all these dead guards, and he's like, oh no, what happened? He tries to check out the receptionist. We couldn't see the receptionist because guess what? Michael got her too. But then he comes across and he does find Michael. And he's trying to play. I swear to God, he's like the sweetest man. He's trying to befriend, like Mikey, you know me. Let's get you back to yourself. Get you where you're at home. You know, gotta get him back. And he goes in to handcuff Michael. It's like one of those horror movie mistakes. You think you're befriending the killer, you're not befriending the killer. And so we proceed with the most saddest death in this entire movie, in my opinion, the death of Danny Trejo.
You know, honestly, you know, because I felt the same way at first, but then now as I'm looking at it now, he totally deserved it.
Hey, the way I look at it is like he's been with Mikey for 15 years. Mikey never had attacked him, as far as we know, right? He's never attacked him. He's never lashed back. Maybe he thought that he can get to Mikey, and then that's the thing that frustrated me in this movie, right? All the killings that Michael has done so far, with the exception of the nurse, right? It's always been about a character that has done something wronging to him, so Michael was lashing out. This is a character, besides the nurse, who's done absolutely no wrong to Michael here, other than doing his job, but not being in the most kindest way possible. And then he gets brutally murdered. And I'm like, it frustrates me because we're, again, trying to create the sympathetic killer, but then going back to his original roots of being that killer. So I was like, it was just a frustrating thing for me to watch. I literally, when I watched this in the theaters, I screamed at the theater, at the screen, like, no, why did you kill him?
Well, and it is frustrating because the entire, and I don't know, I feel like they lost the point by this one, because obviously they were trying to make it so that, you know, you're setting up Michael Myers as this character who he isn't just killing for the sake of killing. He's killing because he had a bad home, he had a bad upbringing. You know, his father sucked, his mom, like, everybody sucked, right? You know, hell, as far as he saw, even the baby sucked. But that's what they're trying to paint this portrait, is that he is who he is because his family sucked, right? And he was bullied in school, so obviously that's the rationale. They're trying to give you the sympathy factor of he kills only the people who've done him wrong in his life, right? But even even just a few moments ago, you know, early in this movie, it all kind of starts to unravel, because why did he kill the nurse? Just because she was there and she was alive. Okay, so now it's not so much people who wronged him. Now it's just randomish, right? Because again, that's what we're kind of led to believe, that now it's just random. Now he's just killing for the sake of killing. He's not killing because there's specific motive behind it. Now he's becoming the Michael Myers. He's killing because he's killing. But then we get to this scene where it's like, this is literally the only human who's done you no wrong, and he kills him too. And it makes sense as far as because of who the character is, because Michael Myers is just a killer because he's a killer. But now this became to the point of the movie for me where it's just, you lost the plot. You lost the point of what you're trying to make for this character. You first make him to be this guy he's killing people because he wants to find justice. Okay, well, never mind though. Now you're just killing because you're just killing. Okay, I guess. But now he's just killing the only friend he ever had.
Yep.
It just didn't make sense to me. As far as the context of how the movie's framing it, it did not make sense whatsoever.
And it's funny too, because originally when this movie was going through its original printing, right, the studio had removed this scene. Zombie petitioned and lobbied to keep the scene in there, and his reasoning behind that one is just to show how brutal and compassionate Michael Myers is. So in the final cut, or we see in the theatrical release, Zombie won and got to keep the scene in this movie. So I'm like, I totally get it. Again, it goes right back to Michael being a, heartless, like, evil killer, right? But I feel like it's contradictory, at least, to what we were trying to establish with Michael being a sympathetic killer. That's the only. I would have, if it was me, maybe Michael would beat the crap out of him and really left him like close to death. Because there's something else that will come up later in this movie that absolutely pissed me off too. Because if Michael killed this character, why not the other? I don't know why, but I would have had just wanted to see Danny Trejo just, being beaten at least and then left alone. But I totally get where Zombie was trying to get with this, but I not 100% there. But after the brutal killing of Danny Trejo, sweetest man alive, we get to another cutscene. So Michael escapes the asylum here, and then we get to the wide cut of a truck stop. And here we're going to be meeting another one of Zombie's familiars or familiar castings here. And that is going to be the awesome Ken Foree. And I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, Foree. If you don't know, he was in the original Dawn of the Dead. He was one of the main characters. He also reappears in the remake too as like a televangelist. I thought it was kind of funny, like he reappeared in the remake for Zack Snyder. And he does also appear in a lot of other zombies films too. So it was nice to see him in here. And of course, he goes to the bathroom, and then Michael shows up in the bathroom. Then they had some kind words. Michael was trying to pull the Terminator. I want you to take off your clothes, all of them. And Ken wasn't having any of them. Of course, Michael didn't say anything. He just stared at him. But fight ensued. Poor Ken bites the dust here, or as he's known in the movie as Grizzly Jones. I thought that was a funny name for his character. I actually kind of like the name Grizzly Jones, but or Joe, Grizzly Joe. I'm sorry. And he gets taken out by Michael, and Michael takes his duds and sports himself a brand new jumpsuit. What do you know? We're getting closer and closer to the Michael Myers that we know. After this scene right here, we then cut over to finally, it's like after 52 or 58 minutes of the movie, we finally get to Laurie Strode. The original movie, we see her after 10 minutes of the movie. This is 52 to 58 minutes of the movie, and we finally get to Laurie and her family. Fun fact, not another, I wouldn't say a zombie familiar just yet, but her mother is Dee Wallace. I don't know if you're familiar with her either, but she's in a lot of horror movies previously too. One of them not really a horror movie, but like in Hills Have Eyes, Cujo, Frighteners, E.T. is the one that I was non-horror. I was surprised that was Elliot's mother. I was like, that can't be her. It is her. And then recently she was in Zombies 3 for Hell, or 3 from Hell. So I thought it was kind of interesting to see that we have some more of a collage of cast. But this is where things kind of turn for the difference, right? So we no longer have this origin story. We're now in the present time. We're now telling the actual story that we're more familiar with, which was originally in the original movie. It was 8 to 10 minutes. Now it's been expanded to 50 minutes almost. And then we get to see Laurie. Biggest complaint I had about this point here is that we're going to start seeing a little bit more Laurie, but it's not going to be the same levels. We'll dive a little bit more into that one, but I want to just keep moving along just a little bit here. So after the whole breakfast scene with her parents, we see Laurie going down what I like to call memory lane. A lot of shots and sequences were lifted or shot there from the original movie. I don't know if you're aware about this, Spencer, but did any of these scenes, as we were walking along with Laurie and stuff like that, all the way to the school, did any of that look familiar to you by any chance?
I mean, as far as like the settings and all that, I mean, it didn't look super duper familiar to me.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie here. It didn't look familiar to me at first too. Then I looked up trivia about this. So apparently, the scenes that were shot right here were shot in a is it Southern Pasadena, I believe. I'm trying to double check this here.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
funny.
it's shot in Southern Pasadena, California, which the original Halloween was shot. So a lot of these scenes, like this scene right here, was shot from the original, like the exact location from the original movie. So they were trying to, like, Zombie was trying to utilize actual homages or actual locations of the movie or from the first movie into the remake itself. So I thought it was kind of neat how we kind of have these like little comparisons. I think the little boy's name is Billy, right? Or was it Tommy? I can't remember. I think it's Tommy. No, I'm mixing up movies now. But having that same like some similar conversations they had from the first movie. And then as we kind of go in a little bit between the back and forth, right? Michael is now all of a sudden back at his old home, the Myers home. And he dredges up his old murder knife and his actual face. I thought it was kind of funny that he came back home and like it makes sense now like why we didn't see him with the Michael Myers mask in the very beginning. But there's something about the mask is now absolutely different. So like in all the other Halloween movies, they it's usually the mask has always been like pale white, nothing about it, right? But with this movie, they made the mask a lot more different. They try to give it that aged look, kind of make it a little bit more menacing. I've read in the past where some fans got really pissed off about that, and they got pissed off about the poster itself too, because like this is not the Michael Myers that we know. Why is the mask all cracked or looking like crap? What's up with this? What's going on?
Right.
I mean, it makes sense in the context of the movie, right? It's been years since he's been to the house and all that stuff, and the mask has aged. Be it that you've only watched the original just recently too. How did you feel about like the comparison between the new mask and the old mask?
I mean, I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was this like master craftsmanship of a mask. It looks like a mask. But I think like the thing that kind of lends itself to the original one that made Michael such a memorable killer, which this movie freaking ruins in every which goddamn way possible, is that you don't know who Michael is. You don't, other than like you see him in as a kid for all of 30 seconds, right? You see his actual face as a kid, but you don't know what he looks like. That's the whole point of the mask, is that you don't get to see the big reveal of this is the killer behind the mask, right? All you really know is that it's some guy who's deranged and he's killing people. The mask on this one, I didn't like it too much because you could see way too much of his eyes. That bugged me a lot.
I can agree with you there. I think for me, because a lot of fans got pissed off about this because it's just like Jason's hockey mask is very iconic. So same thing with the pale look of the Michael mask, because it's supposed to be symbolic of that like pure evil, like it's like that pureness, right? So when it came like this, a lot of people got all upset because like why are they trying to face a horror like a horror icon mask, right? You don't deface Jason necessarily, though Jason's mask has changed throughout the movies. It's still the same look. That's the one thing that kind of like peed me off when I was reading in forums in the past about this too, where everyone go, "Oh my god, Michael's new mask looks like shit," and I'm like, and I mean, Jason's mask has changed multiple times. It has little different accents and different colors. You guys didn't throw a shit fit then. Why give a shit fit now? But the only thing I liked about the mask itself is because I did like how it kind of has age and makes it a little bit more menacing. It does, in my opinion. But it does take away the whole like, because we're trying to go into that whole like Michael's evil, right? Well, then if he's supposed to be the figure or the shape of pure evil, then why do we not have it in like the original form? So that was the only thing I had to nitpick on that one. It didn't bug me too much, but I can totally see what you're saying about the whole eyes. Like it's more revealing with the eyes itself.
Yeah, like it works. I don't think it's like the worst thing in the world. I don't even think it's the worst mask that I've ever seen. But it's just like because the way that again like it's really weird. I feel like the filmmaker, like Rob Zombie, I feel like he didn't know what he wanted when he was making these movies, because, and the reason I say that is that, he tries to build this, the way that the film is made, where they obviously don't show you adult Michael's face, right? Every time you see him, you see his hair, and then they kind of shadow out his face a little bit because they're trying to build that mystique of like, ooh, who's Michael? Ooh, what does he look like? People love that shit. People love that stuff.
But here's a fun fact, because I totally get what you're saying. Like, not sure where he wants to go with the direction. it's not really in the trivia. It's more or less, I believe, in the commentary itself too. But Zombie was constantly fighting with the studio heads about the direction of the film. They were constantly on his ass trying to like implement this or change this, and he was trying to go about with his own pathway. So the movie became kind of a clusterfuck, not by a whole lot though, right? I'll be honest, that became more so with the second movie because after the first one came out, and it did pretty good in the box office, but they wanted a bigger success, so they did. If you thought this movie was a little bit weird and wonky with the direction, the second movie it's a whole new beast, and I want to believe, and if I'm remembering correctly, Zombie was saying that the second movie was a giant fuck you to the studio heads because he couldn't do what he wanted to do. But I totally see what you're saying there with the whole not knowing what to do. It's not necessarily him. It's really the studio heads really constantly interfering and trying to change up things or implement things that they want to do. So that's what sucked about that aspect, though.
It made it frustrating to watch because it's like you're trying to create this well, first of all, they're dispelling the mystique of Michael right from the get-go, right? Because they're making it so that this is the killer, this is what he looks like as a young boy, and then but let's make him scarier, right? Like let's frame it so that he's a little bit scarier now. And it's like, okay, yeah, okay, that makes sense, I get it. But it's like, then don't hide his face. You got to show me what the guy looks like, but we don't want to ruin the mystique. It's like, but I don't. See, that's what I mean. Like, I kept fighting with myself. It's like, well, what are you trying to do with this?
What are you trying to
then?
achieve? Yeah, I can get what you're saying there on that one. Like, yeah,
like you're obviously wanting me to see Michael. You want me to, appreciate Michael Myers, but it's like, then what are you showing me here? Then, like, you're showing me somebody who's supposed to be this scary figure. But then you don't want me to see what he looks like. But then you give him this mask where you see what he looks like. Like, what the fuck? Like, it's like they just didn't know what they wanted to do with this character. And it's frustrating to watch.
I like totally get that. And then, but as we move along here too, Michael hears something because this is actually the scene where he hears something outside. I swear to God, this is where it gets really, really more like jumpy camera. But Lori is going door to door. It looked like she was going door to door, and she's trying to like put out these like little notices or whatnot. And she indirectly meets Michael. Michael's right behind the door, and she's messing with I want to say Billy. I'm not Billy or Tommy. I can't remember. And it's like, oh no, the boogeyman's got me and stuff like that, and then drops it off and then runs on her way. But she was literally knocking at death's door at that point, almost. We then cut to another scene where we're at the library and we finally meet Lori's friends. I can't honestly remember what the friend to her right's name is. I do remember the one on the left though, and her name is Annie. So I had some fun little trivia here too, because I know you never got a chance to watch it, but Zombie made it a point he never wanted any character, like any actors from the previous Halloween movies to reappear in his remake or remakes. One exception though, and that's what I want to call it's a little Danny here. So her name was Danielle Harris. She was actually the little girl in Halloween 4 and 5. She's like the main character basically. But funny story here. So let me try and get over here. Trying to see what here. Where is that little trivia I had right here? So for her, again, Zombie did not want anybody from the previous movies, but when she found out that they were going to be doing a Halloween remake, she really wanted to get into it. So she had a conversation with Zombie, and like the only way that she was able to get her role in the film was literally because of what we're going to be seeing later on is her. Well, we won't see it in my screenshots here, but she was doing these lengthy like topless scenes basically. And if I remember right, it was something kind of like a Molly Cyrus or Demi Lovato approach or whatnot. She was just trying to take it in stride. Like, I'll do whatever it takes in a sense, so I can be in this. And when I want to break this little kid cutesy role, because she used to do like Disney and Nickelodeon shows too. So she was trying to break that mold, and that's kind of like that sense right there. But I thought it was kind of nice to have another horror alumni in this film here, especially somebody who was in the Halloween movies himself. I just thought it was kind of crazy what she had to go through to obtain this role, though. But it was a little bit interesting with that one there. And and we kind of get some familiar things too. So not necessarily the library itself, but as they were discussing, Laurie does see Michael across. I do want to ask this, and maybe not here, but does this location look familiar to you, Spenser?
I mean, just from what I remember, first of all, I mean, I appreciated the scene for what it was because it's shit like this that I love, where they're respecting and paying tribute to the original. Like, this was very John Carpenter-ish, right? Like, you see this guy, you're like, whoa, what's he doing there? He's very menacing. Like, that's how it felt in the original movie. You didn't know who Michael Myers was at that point. All you know is that there's this huge looming dude in the middle of the daytime. Like, anybody else who's not watching this should be like, whoa, who's that guy? What is he doing? What is he up to? But I really appreciated scenes like this, like when Laurie was in the classroom and she looked out the window, exactly like it was in the original. So Jamie Curtis is just like, oh, what's going on out there? And she just sees this figure of just presence of, whoa, why is he doing that? That's weird. So I really like that. As far as this location, I'm looking at it now. It kind of looks like the original house from the first one. I could be wrong though. Is that what it is?
Yep, that is what it is. So again, it's filming in southern Pasadena here. This is actually Laurie's house in the original Halloween movie. So it's kind of funny that I
didn't catch it the first way around.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that they mimic, again, they paid homage to an actual shot from the original movie, but they also incorporated a kind of a landmark of the original movie, right? So they were able to actually do this tree scene and then make it alongside the house from the original cameo into it. So that's kind of a neat little thing. And I thought that was like a fun little like, oh snap, that's awesome.
That's very smart. I like that a lot.
And I agree with you. I totally appreciate, again, homages to the original, not necessarily doing shot by shot, right? But they did a nice little homage to it, or like a respect to it.
Right, because the people who watch the original one, they watch this one going, well, look, I remember the Halloween from 20 some odd years ago. Then they can watch this one and go, oh, okay, they did their homework. They're they're being coy, but they're being good about it. That's really cool. That's the stuff that I like to see. I like it when filmmakers can take something like an old IP, make it their own, but still be like, okay, you're a fan of the original one. All right, I see you. And this movie does do that, or at least tries to do that from time to time, but it does muck it up a lot too, and that's the part that's the part that makes it frustrating. It's like, you're obviously a huge fan. Even the creator was like, yeah, go for it, and it just they never stick the landing. They never stick the landing on this one.
I treat it like it's all the above. It's like things kept effing with it at the same time. It's like direction too. So I was like, I can't necessarily always blame the producers, but you can. At the same time, it is your work too. So what you're trying to put out there, that's what you're putting out there. So it's like, it's all that. But we're going to go ahead and move along too, because the next scene here is that as they're walking along, we got another familiar kind of scene too, where we see Michael standing menacingly. The girls are actually taunting him, sans Laurie, like they're all being all funny and promiscuous and stuff like that. Oh, teenage girls. Modern teenage girls, I don't know, but they were just having a fun and laugh. Michael does walk off from this scene here. Again, a lot of this is very homaging to the original itself, but the girls do get stopped by Annie's father. I don't know if you recognize him. He is another horror alumni. I will say that you might not recognize his face. Maybe he's been seen in a lot of movies though, but his voice is the most recognizable. Do you happen to know who he is?
I mean, just no, it's not coming out at me right away. I don't know.
No worries. I just want to just poke in and like see what we got here. But that's actually Brad Dourif. If you know Brad Dourif in the horror movies, he is the forever voice of Chucky, basically.
Oh, how funny.
So I mean, like, we do see him in other movies too. Like, it's not like he's never acted by it, like, in person, right? Like, he's been in I remember like Alien Resurrection. He was in was it Exorcist 3, if I remember correctly, and a bunch of other movies too. So it's like, it's never out there, but his voice usually like stands out because it's. But this one's a little more subtle. It's just his actual like normal tone voice. Chucky usually tends to be kind of like a little bit of a higher with a snarkiness behind it, But That is Brad Dourif there, and he comes by and he's offering the girls a ride, but Annie's the only one that takes the ride, and the other two walk the rest back home. Right after that, we get to another scene cut here, and we are seeing Loomis checking out the graves because there were some disturbances at the graves, and we meet another of Zombie's familiars here, which is Sid Haig. Rest in peace. He did pass away. I believe it was last year he passed away, unfortunately.
Oh, dang.
He barely completed his principal scenes for Three from Hell before passing away. So it's sad. He is another one of those like vile character actors, basically, right? He could play a really good vile character, but he's also very funny at the same time too, in a dark humor way. But sans that fun little trivia, both Loomis and the gravekeeper come by and they find out that a grave has been desecrated. Oh no, who could it be? They don't show us what the grave is, but Loomis knows exactly who that gravestone was and proceeds to continue with his search for Michael. I forgot to mention earlier, yeah, after Michael broke out too, there was they put APB for Michael and all that jazz, and that's how Loomis finds out Michael's on the run. After that, fact of the matter, I'm trying to make sure I'm getting my little points here correct too. Okay, so I couldn't recognize him at first, but apparently that's actually again one of the friends of Lori here, and with her boy toy here, and they decide to house crash the Myers place. And, they say like, "Oh man, I'm sad that they sold this place and whatnot." And, like they're just coming in there to have some fun under the blankets. And Michael just happens to be chilling there too. He was not very happy about that. So Michael gets a little bit stabby, but he gets stabby in very familiar ways. Of course, being one of them being which is the stick to the wall scene, basically. And then we also get following up with that one too is the kill underneath the blankets. So it again homages back to the original movies with these two particular kills. Granted, I think the second, like the blanket kill, is a little bit more respecty to it. Some odd reason, I honestly did not like this scene right here with the stick to the wall. I think one thing I really did not like, even though most of the shot was like right here, and after he sticks him to the wall, Michael does his very infamous like head tilt. But we don't see it that well. In the original, if I'm not mistaken, you actually see it a little bit more like Michael's face up close, and he does that head tilt, and then he uncants, and then he walks away. But what did you think about these two particular scenes that homage to the original, Spenser?
I only thought it was a little silly because I'm like, do you see the size of the knife? That body would be up for all of 4 seconds before it just plopped to the ground. I don't think the knife was big enough to make that realistic.
The only way I could believe it is if he knew that there was a stud right there and he really got into that side. I mean, like, he has to be like freakishly strong to drive the knife through a dude's body, through whatever bone and cartilage, and then solidly into that stud. Other than that, that would have been like plaster, or like drywall, and then just crumple.
Because like Mike's knife, typically a kitchen knife is this, it's not enough to stab a person completely through the other side. Like I'm like measuring myself. I'm a big guy, and I don't think even my biggest kitchen knife would stab me through to the other side, let alone stab me through to the other side and have enough going into like drywall or plaster or wood or whatever to keep my body up like that. That's the only part that kind of suspended my disbelief of like, you fucking, what kind of knife? Dude, that's a samurai sword at this point. What are you talking about? But I still, again, even to this point, the shot was still kind of paying respect and paying tribute to the original John Carpenter, because he kills the first killer, or the first babysitter, non-babysitter almost, that he kills was like the boyfriend. So it's still doing the respecting to the originals while still keeping its own. And I still like shots like this. It just, I remember my mood being so soured by the original first and second acts of this film that even cool stuff like this, I was like, I don't give a shit. You still made him a relatable human character. He's not this supernatural force of evil that people know him for. But still, yeah, I still like shots like this. Anything that makes me feel like, all right, you like the first one. Like, yeah, like this whole bit, like this whole thing with the sheath and the...
Yeah.
Like, it's like Michael. Even when I saw the original one, I was like, dude, Michael is a scary killer entity, but man, he's got a sense of humor. He's a funny man. He is a funny guy. He grew up in this psychiatric ward prison thing, but man, he's funny under there somewhere. He's funny.
Oh man. But I mean, I totally agree with you because like I love the homages at this, like homages with these certain scenes. I just didn't like in just the last scene though, in particular. Is just we miss out on the can. I think that's so very iconic of Michael too. Like certain killers have their certain quirks or things that they do on screen, and I thought that losing out that little head tilt that we didn't clearly see, it just threw me off just a little bit, but it's not by a whole lot.
It was just shot by like it was shot in a weird angle. It looked like
Yeah, it was just that static angle from up to the up the stairwell, and we didn't really get too close into, which is really weird considering that some of the kills we got very intimate and close to, and then this one's just a static shot backwards like that. So I thought it was just very sad. But it's not entirely at a loss, So after the scene here, we move along here, and it kind of plays a little bit. I'm trying to make sure I'm not losing myself out here. At some point, I believe it was actually earlier or not. We get a scene with Loomis trying to get the not try to, but he gets a gun to shoot. There's some funny stuff about like, or you want to put a big hole through a guy, get a 357 Magnum. I thought it was just some funny, silly talk and stuff like that. Because we all know if you really want to put a hole through a person, you get a 44 or 50 AE. Sorry.
I mean, and I remember that scene being kind of funny. And I think even at the time, it wouldn't have made sense. But I'm like, look, man, I'm not a gun person in the slightest. But don't you have to like wait a bit to get a gun?
Depends. Because the background check. So real talk. Background checks could take up to just 20 minutes. Depending on how quick it goes through the system, because it goes to the FBI, then it comes back to the dealer, basically. So it could take longer. Like what's going on recently with the whole COVID stuff, it could take you like a week or so because it's so backed up. Or you can go to certain states like in California or whatnot, where they do have a waiting period. So it varies. If I remember right, Haddonfield should be in Illinois.
It is in Illinois,
yeah. How they try to portray it in the movie. So should be Haddonfield, Illinois. I don't recall if they have a waiting period or not. So it probably like if it's like there's no huge wait or whatnot, Loomis could just been in the shop for like 20 minutes. And
yeah,
he cleared, so like, he's good.
I don't remember that. I don't remember how it works with guns, but I think you have to wait a bit.
It all depends. But yeah. So he shops for a gun. I think there's some funny conversation that they have there, and the gun dealer is just trying to sell up. I guess I don't know if he's trying to really sell up or not. But we get to another cut to here, and it's basically the the Strodes giving away trick or treat candy. Lori says goodbye to her parents. She's gonna go babysit. I think it's Billy or Tommy. I keep forgetting the name. And then she leaves the scene. The parents do like have some like little like intimate, not super intimate moment. They just had an intimate moment, and mommy goes in the house, and dad just kind of lingers around, gets one more puff of the smoke, and then Michael says, "Put that shit out." That was like one of the only jump scares in the movie that kind of got me in the theater because I didn't expect it, because it literally happens like a split second. It's that quick. It looks like Michael slashed at his throat. I could not make out of it, right? Slashes the throat, pushes the dad into the house, and then we get this huge establishing shot of the house. And then we get inside the house. Mikey's there. Mommy is scared to death. And there's a very slight chase in the living room. And, mommy's all scared. And Michael goes like, okay, don't worry. I'll make it a snap for you. And there goes mommy and daddy for the Strodes. I thought that was a little bit like, wow, Stark, that he iced them that quickly. I thought it was also kind of like weird that like Dee Wallace ends up dying. I'd never thought of her as an actress that had died as a character. So I was like, it was like one of those like, it's a stupid little game. Like what kind of actor has died in what actor has not died in a movie, right? Like, and it's like a
Certainly
small.
not Sean Bean, I'll tell you that.
There should be another list at this point, like actors who've died the most, right? And obviously Sean Bean's probably going to be the king, king of that mountain, right there, king of the
I'd be really surprised
King
if
of
he
North.
wasn't. I'm sure somebody's trumped him in that regard, but damn, man.
I want to believe that someone has trumped him. I don't know. I would love to try and do a list like that, but but we move along here. After that little sequence right there, we kind of get Annie calling up Lori, who's already at the house of Billy, and she's like, "Hey, could you babysit my sister or whatnot?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, that'd be cool. Go ahead and come on over and drop her off." And we just get Michael being Michael here. It's like you can barely see it, but he's just looming in the background. And he does come inside the house too and looms over the baby sister, and it's like it's kind of creepy, menacing, and then goes away, right? Then we come to another scene here where Loomis is trying to talk to Sheriff Beckett and trying to convince him Michael's here. Michael broke out. He's coming to kill his sister. And he's like trying to cover it up, kind of like almost a Freddy, like Nightmare on Elm Street kind of thing. He's like, no, he wouldn't come here. He wouldn't know that that's his sister and all that jazz. He tries to deny it. But we keep moving along. We do get the scene where Annie and her sister arrive to the home and they drop it off. Michael's watching from the distance. He's looming, he's lurking, he's stalking. And then we keep going along. Oh, I think I skipped ahead. We get some other scenes here with the kids like talking it over with Lori about what's the boogeyman, because Billy Tommy, I keep forgetting his name, is so interested about talking about the boogeyman. They had this like little fun little tickle fight with the babysitter and stuff like that. And at this point, we pretty much move along here. If I'm trying to remember correctly here, because I could not have any of the shots for this, so we then come across. Let me scoot down here. Make sure I got the right spot. Okay, perfect. So after the scene where the kids are dropped off, Annie goes back to their place. Pete shows up because she tells Lori like they're gonna have a little of fun action at that point. They get a little bit of action. This is where Annie, or in this case Danielle Harris, the actress, gets topless, and she's topless for the remaining of the movie here. So big thing for her, I guess. And what happens here is that Michael then comes in here and he becomes an absolute cockblock, like he always is, like any other, serial killer in these movies. Grabs the boyfriend, kills the boyfriend, and cuts up Annie. I'm not kills her, but cuts her up. And after that point, Lori brings over the sister. Then she finds Annie bloody on the floor. She tells her to go back and call the police or whatnot. Stay with Billy, and Lori goes inside the house and tries to make a call. Michael then is there, looming around, doing his Michael things. Again, he did not kill Annie, and here's where I wanted to talk earlier on too, was that. So in the original movie, Annie was actually one of the first friends that gets killed by Michael. If I remember correctly, she's the one that gets killed in the laundry room. She's the first kill, right? But after that, I think she then gets put up into that Here Lies Judith Myers gravestone. And it was a little bit frustrating because, again, we talked earlier about Danny Trejo. Nicest dude in the world, nicest dude in the movie, and he gets iced. Michael comes here, he kills Pete, the boyfriend, and then he slashes up, but he doesn't kill Annie. Why? Of all the characters that he let live, besides, I don't think he let live Lori here, but of all the characters that he killed, why didn't he also kill Annie? I almost want to assume that it's because
didn't know what they wanted to do with this goddamn character.
I honestly thought it's just because she's a horror alumni, right? So it's like, or Halloween alumni at this point. So like they didn't want to kill her off because she's a Halloween cameo. So I thought that's why they didn't want to kill her off. But sure, that makes sense in that context. But then it doesn't make sense contextually. And this is where I go with you, like, not sure what the director or what they were trying to do at all. I'm like, okay, Michael kills people at this point. Why didn't he kill her? What made her special that he didn't want to kill her? So that's
It's the one thing that just kind of keeps this version of Michael from being that memorable is that it's not random, right? Or at least it doesn't feel random. Not at first. They don't make it so that it's random at first. When it is random, it's scarier, right? Because you literally don't know who's next. It could be this one, or it could be that one, or oh damn, I thought they were gonna live, but no, they don't live. They get killed. At the beginning of the movie, the whole thing is structured as he kills people who wronged him. You throw that out the window the moment that he kills the Danny Trejo character, right? Because at that point, well, okay, never mind. He's just killing whoever's in front of him or is the next obstacle by that point,
Mm-hmm.
and you still really don't know. He just killed Danny Trejo because he was an obstacle, right? And then we cut forward to the guy, pooping his ass out in the stall, and he just kills him because he just needed some clothes. Like, that's weird. Now you're just killing just to kill, which is closer to the original Michael, which is great. But this version of Michael doesn't make sense now. And now we fast forward to something like this one where he's killed people seemingly random, again, more Michael-ish than, from the original version. Then this one just kind of cuts the shit like this. It's like, okay, but then why are you just picking and choosing now? I don't understand you. Your whole character arc makes no sense.
Yep. And that threw me off and got me all pissed about it. Like, I started getting pissed at this point of the movie a bit. I'm like, why? Why is she, like, isn't she dead? No, she's still alive. But we'll find out later on she's actually alive. But we think that she might be dying. Laurie comes over, calls the police, and then bam, Michael shows up and scares the bejesus out of her. We get a little bit of a chase sequence here. Laurie makes it out of the house and runs into Tommy's house, very similar to the original, where she's banging at I think she's like, Tommy, let me in. Tommy, let me in. They let her in. Michael shows up at the door. Everyone's screaming, freaking out. He literally just hulks through the door and Hulk smashes it. And they bolt up the stairs. Horror movie mistake. You don't ever want to go upstairs. But they run upstairs and then they barricade themselves not only in the bathroom, but to the bathtub itself, right? Where we're seeing here. I think, if I remember right, at some point around here, there was a sequence between Dr. Loomis and Sheriff. They were talking like how long it's gonna take. It's gonna take us 10 minutes to get there. And I was like, huh, that's nice. It kind of makes me think about, home defense. So like, man, wouldn't it be really, really nice to have some home defense here? Because, when seconds count, cops are minutes away. So yeah. But lucky enough for them, after they had that call for the police, Shazam, police actually do show up. And it was kind of surprising though, because like they were like, one of the cops goes into the other rooms. I don't know how Michael was not seen at this point. I don't know if he was like downstairs or he was upstairs, right? But one cop goes into the hallway. The other cop notices that all three of them are in the bathroom, and it's like a windowed bathroom, right? So he knocks on the window, is like, "Hey, open the door." And like, "Is it safe? Did you get him?" He's like, "I don't see anybody. Come on out." And of course, as Laurie's about to go open the door, cop gets stabbed and killed right then and there. His partner comes around the corner, is like, "Freeze!" Michael's like not even quite like 10 feet away or a little bit more than that. And sure enough, as much as the cop would like to get more shots off, that 10-foot gap is closed really, really quickly. He only gets off one shot into Michael's shoulder before getting stabbed. So yeah, not so much help right there with the police, unfortunately. Michael then proceeds to smash through the bathroom window, because it's not much of a door, and proceeds to he corners our main heroine, right? He corners her and the kids. But instead of stab, he grabs her. This is like, as much as I thought about Annie, like, what the fuck is she still alive? But then Michael's grabbing Laurie here and not killing her. I was like, what's going on? This is super different. It's like finally the cat caught the mouse, dog got the bumper and doesn't know what to do with it. So we got to the sequence here. It's like, so what is Michael's ultimate goal? What is he trying to do? I was really, really confused at this point. We move along from that point. Oopsie, I don't know what happened right there. Oh no. The slide kind of got jumbled up.
It kind of got wonky, yeah.
Don't worry, I will resolve this. Oh no. Let's see if I can fix this up here. Here, let me do this. I have to move things out of the way. I don't know why it cut off. It didn't do that before. But I will resolve this because we are almost there. Do 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 do. There we go. And I will have to fix the stream to share this. It looks like the same, but it's not. It's actually my Windows. There we go. So, they made a run off with it. Laurie's now with Michael. Finally, the sheriff and Loomis appear. They made their way back, and they are now going to rescue them. But as they are trying to assess the situation, the ambulance come by. The two kids finally run out of the house, and they got Loomis. Loomis is like, "What's going on, kids? What's going on?" The boogeyman, they got Laurie. He's got Laurie. They're over there. Loomis goes over in that direction, and he tells the kids to stay put. As we cut, as Loomis is trying to go to them, we cut to this scene right over here, which is very familiar again to, this is what I think is a nice little homage, right? It's very similar to the original where one of Laurie's friends is on the bed and we get the tombstone of like, "Here lies Judith Myers," but instead we get a Myers tombstone and one of her dead friends in this weird like cellar basement area. I don't even know what that was. But as Laurie's crying over her dead friend here, Michael shows up, and we think that he's going to do something else, but he doesn't. Instead, he pulls out a picture from his pocket, and it's the same picture that the nurse made a comment about earlier on in the movie, and it's not even a mean comment. She's like, "That's a nice baby, and a nice cute photo." And so, okay, this is another WTF moment, right? He shows the pictures of Laurie. He had dropped the knife down, and Laurie's freaking out of her mind. She doesn't understand, and I'm pretty sure, like, it makes sense. Like, you're kidnapped by a dude who just killed your friends, and then it shows you a old photo. What do you think about it?
God, this whole scene is such a crock of shit.
Yeah. So
it is such a crock because, like, dude, like, it's just, again, this character doesn't know what he is. He doesn't know if he's this ruthless killer. He doesn't know if he's this random killer. He doesn't know if he's going after family. And look, what, you're going to tell me that he had, the baby didn't wrong him, so he didn't kill the baby, and now it's like, dude, first of all, if you wanted to establish any kind of relationship with your quote sister, going around and killing people and stalking is not the way to do it. Like, look, I understand that he probably got some problems upstairs in the head, but killing everyone around and then being like, "Ooh, those people are gone. Hey, listen, look at this photo. This is us." You know that? And it's like, this whole scene pissed me off.
You know
like,
what?
the fact that she goes nuts is so. That would have been me. I would have been like,
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Here's what I was thinking. Maybe he's like a cat, like, "I love you. I want to take care of you. Here's some dead things." I don't freaking know. It's like, why? It did not make any sense whatsoever in the film. And it seems like he's trying to have some kind of connection with Laurie, and that's lost on her, obviously. But Laurie then sees the knife. Michael does take off his mask at this point. You can kind of see it. Actually, I think my face is covering it, though. But in his right hand, he's holding his mask here and trying to expose. We don't even really see his face. I mean, like, we kind of see it from time to time, but it's really covered by a lot of his hair, which doesn't make sense when he has the mask on. The mask is like, there's no hair in his eye slits, right? But then when he takes off the mask, it's like hair is all over the front of his face.
Ugh.
But Laurie reaches out for the knife and gets a little stabby and gets him really good in that collarbone area. Like, damn. After she stabs Michael is down and out for the count. And here's where I kind of go, like, another horror movie mistake, right? It's like, you got the killer down. Why don't you just keep going? I mean, just one stab is not going to put him down. What she does then is she basically runs over to the door, and like, a struggle ensues of trying to get out of this, like, terribly walled off doorway or whatnot. Michael does get up eventually and then chases her slightly. He's struggling to get through all these places, but Laurie manages to get out. She gets out and it looks like it's the back cellar area of the Myers house. And as she's running, she doesn't pay attention and she falls in the deep end of a pool. An empty pool, by the way. And that looked pretty painful when she fell down. So she's, at the deep end, not sure what to do. So she's crying for help and all that. And lo and behold, I skipped ahead. But Michael shows up, obviously, because of all her screaming and crying and stuff like that. and stares her down. I guess Michael does not want to be friendly anymore or want to reunite with his sister, other than reuniting her with the knight that killed their older sister. Loomis shows up, and one of the more, like, I want to say cooler scenes, but it's just like I love this shot right here in particular. It's just the way he's like, Michael, stop! And he's trying to like convince Michael to stop what he's doing. Michael does not. He turns around, and Loomis then plugs him with, if I'm wrong here, about 3 shots, and literally Michael goes down. I mean, he goes down after being stabbed and shot 4 times, down and out. Loomis then goes over to Lori, picks her up, and we get a very familiar, another homage-esque scene, right? We get them coming into the cop car. He helps her in. He sits down next to her, and then she goes, "Was that the boogeyman?" To which Loomis replies, "In fact, that was the boogeyman." I want to pause right here. What did you thought about that little bit of that sequence right there? Like, it's another homage-esque sequence, and we know what's going to come up afterwards in the fact because the movie's not quite over just yet. We got like another like 10 more minutes of that movie left, but
I thought it was cute. Again, this is the part that I feel like it shines from Malcolm McDowell, is that I love the way that even though he had him dead to rights, and he had not the knife, the gun right to his back, and he did like a warning shot into him, and you could feel the frustration that he's like, I don't want to kill you, but dude, you're leaving me no choice. I really liked seeing that struggle from Loomis, because yeah, he claimed to be like his best friend and all that. He claimed to be like, oh, you're my homie now. But it's like, dude, we know what's really going on. I mean, this guy's just, he has no choice, because he knows that this is like ultimate evil, but because he's invested so much time and essentially like love and energy into Michael to try to cure him, air quote, he knows that he can't be stopped. He knows that he can't just let him go. He can't just be like, no, we're cool, man. Don't worry about it, bro. He knows that he has to commit this. In his mind, I would think like he sees it as like the ultimate sin of like killing this poor, misunderstood creature.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way of putting it. I never saw it that way, because again, I'm so used to Loomis like seeing Michael as pure evil and stuff like that, and Loomis doesn't come off like that, or like Malcolm McDowell's Loomis didn't come off like that in this movie. So I never really thought or saw it in that way, where he was like, yeah, he's like thinking about it, like, as much as it's been 15 years, whether or not he was really like a friend or not, it's like, I'm gonna have to put you down. I don't want to do that because you could be salvaged. There's something savable in you, and like, that's kind of an interesting take. I never really thought about that, because again, we don't dive into the whole like Loomis demifying Michael like he does in the original and in sequential movies after that too. So that's kind of, I never thought about that, dude. So that's a really interesting take on that.
That's the reason I love Loomis in this version of Halloween, because it's like he as a doctor, he knows that if you can't fix something, you can't fix something, and he's invested so many times. There's so much time of his life to try to fix or correct Michael, even though he knows in his notes he's putting, you can't fix this. This is unsalvageable. This is unfixable. He knows that all that there exists in Michael is evil. That's all he knows. And it's kind of great, because I love seeing that struggle of like, fuck, I know that he's evil. I know that he's just this, devil incarnate, but I still want to save him no matter what. I don't know if it's like his code of ethics that keeps him from seeing his own truth in front of him, but I love that struggle. And you see it in that particular scene, because he shoots Michael once, and he still goes like in his mind, and the way his actions is like, it's still not too late. It's just a flesh wound. But he's still marching towards Lori. Another shot. Like, come on, dude, you're killing me. Figuratively, he's killing Loomis, because he knows that, I gotta put this dog down, but you can't, because he's giving you the puppy dog eyes. It's like
through the little slits.
It's the Rob Zombie version of Old Yeller, and I love that a lot. Because he's like, fuck, I know I got to do this horrible thing of killing this thing that in his mind, he loves Michael in a weird Stockholm syndrome-y kind of way.
Yeah.
But he has to. Or else he's going to kill Lori, he's going to kill Loomis, and he's going to keep on doing his killing thing,
And
So
so
I love that
that's
struggle.
that is like one hell of a take, and I never thought about that. But that's something. It's something in that it just adds something new to me for watching this movie now, like thinking in that terms. So like this is gonna be fun next time when I come around watching this again. Who knows? But that's an interesting take. I need to rewatch it in that manner, like seeing it in that perspective.
Because it
But
makes it that much more sad in a way for Loomis,
yeah,
not for Michael. Because it's like, fuck, man. Like, I get where you're coming from. He's essentially killing his son, type of thing, you know?
mm-hmm.
Because he's done so much investment into, this version of Michael. It's
Trying
like,
to save
how
him.
can how do I kill that which I love? And like us, the viewer, we know it's like, dog, you got to do it. You don't have a choice here. It needs to be done. But watching him struggle this entire time is really entertaining. As a viewer, I think it's really entertaining to watch.
Yeah, definitely. So at this point here, we think that everything's a-okay. It seems like it's gonna be ending just like the original movie, but not. Michael literally just crashes through that window, but grabs Lori and yanks her out of the car. And then basically there's like a little bit of this hostage situation in the Myers house where he's holding her, and then Loomis comes over, and this is where it comes right back to like what you were talking about. Loomis bargains with Michael. He goes like, Michael, don't take her, take me. I know you or what. We've been together for 15 years. Take me instead. Don't take your sister. And literally, Michael drops Lori. Lori does what she did before, which is running back up the stairs. And as Michael grabs Loomis, and it's kind of ironic because like when we were talking about like the whole masking, we could see the slit of Michael's eyes, right? It's kind of like the eyes are the window to the soul, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, Michael grabs Loomis and is crushing not only his skull but also like thumbing into his eyes and just getting all bloody and stuff like that. So it's like kind of an interesting like introvert if you think about it. Like it's it's not only hurting Loomis like mentally at that point, but now like hurting him physically, and if you want to think about it, destroying his own soul like through his own eyes. You're trying to get like I'm trying to get a little meta right there, right? But going into
It's
that level, like,
sad. It's a sad death. Like for me, that was like that was like the oh man.
yeah. And I'm like, I didn't really think about it, and then that's when like when you were pointing out, I'm like, damn, that's really really poignant. And then when you come to this scene, you really think about like how it's set up and it's shot, and it's like, oh shit, yeah. It's like it's more of a very tragic moment, and then alongside with a tragic death for Loomis himself.
Yeah, because it's like it's obviously it's not the beast that he created. I mean, Michael was already screwed up, right? Like as far as how we see it, Michael was just unsalvageable from the start. Um, but it just makes it that much more tragic when it's like, oh man, he really tried. He really tried to bargain with essentially the devil, and it didn't work.
But yeah, I mean,
And it cost him his life, and that sucks.
yeah. But that's a really, again, an interesting perspective from that. After Loomis is getting his head caved in, Lori again runs up the stairs and she's just trying to find a way out. What she does, it's not really an homage in my opinion, because I swear to God, that's like probably the scariest scene when I had originally watched in the original. But she finds a way and kind of crawls into the walls basically, and then like kind of like try to hides in the wall. Kind of similar to when Lori was trapped in the closet, but not on the same level. So she's hiding in there, and Michael comes upstairs dragging Loomis's body with him. And then he's like, where's Lori? And she's just constantly trying to keep her screams in. I'm like, I don't know how it's really that hard to keep a scream in necessarily. I'm not too sure. I know people handle the situations very differently. So, I mean, it varies. But Michael knows when something's up. So then he decides to start thrashing the walls because he knows that Lori's hiding in there. Unfortunately, or fortunately for our heroine here, she actually escaped from the wall setting before he started tearing down the walls. Right then and there, she could see Loomis's dead body, unfortunately, but beside him, he's leaving a parting gift with him. His gun. Lori then reaches out for the gun, and then another chase pursues as Michael chases her down. She somehow reaches up. It was kind of weird how it was shot, but she goes up into this like attic or like small hallway in the ceiling, and then proceeds to crawl up. this scene right here made me a little bit nauseous because it goes from like absolutely stable shots of her like up in this like uh mid-drift area of the like between a cellar, like the attic and the like roofing or whatever, right? Or the ceiling. And then Michael's like frantically just thrashing upwards, like stabbing with this giant like 2x4 or something like that. And it's very like super like shaky cam at that point. I was like, oh my god, this is getting a little bit much. I don't know why. It was also one of those moments where I'm like, girl, do not move. You are absolutely fine where you are. Just don't move. Don't say anything. Michael can't get to you. What does she do? She keeps freaking out. She keeps moving when she doesn't have to move. Michael keeps trying to poke at her. Eventually, she comes across and she falls through the roof or falls through the ceiling into another room. And that must be one hell of a fall. All right, I skipped ahead of it. One hell of a fall because she's pretty banged up at that point. So at this point, she's trying to get up. She looks like she's concussed here. She's got the revolver in her hand, and Michael shows up at the doorway. And Michael immediately just kind of does like a last minute tackle or something like that. He drops a 2x4, charges at her, and Lori is trying, like, she raises up the revolver, but not all the way through, and then gets tackled not only through the window but through the balcony banister and then onto the floor themselves. We then follow with Lori getting back up, really, really banged up, as you could see right here, and she grabs the revolver and she just tries to click away at the revolver, which I call shenanigans. But you know, click, click. We get one last kind of like not really a jump scare, right? But a little bit of a scare where Lori's hand is grabbed by Michael, and then she finally lays down one round into Michael and finishing him off. We then cut off to like again, very similar to what we've seen earlier in the movie. Sirens, Lori screaming and panicking and freaking out. And then we get a little bit of a montage of these this family photo and like, again the Super 8 footage that the mother was looking at before she had passed away. And that pretty much is the end. Cue to credits at that point, but that was the end of Halloween. So up until that point, thoughts? Before we get into thoughts, I just want to just give out this little spiel. So, like, by the end of the movie here, I don't know why Wikia got this wrong or not, or the IMDb, but I looked it up and I counted down. So they had like 18 deaths or 17 deaths. It's apparently 19 deaths is what I counted from beginning, and I was like surprised like how many characters were gone or like died in this case. So like a little bit surprised. It didn't seem like it had that many of a body count in this kind of a movie, but it did, and Zombie really racked in the body count here. But what did you think about that ending, Spencer? And then afterwards, we'll go right into the overall.
I hated it. 10 out of 10. No, it just, the movie never had a clear focus, and that's what bugs me the most about it. It wanted to try to be like, hey, this is the horror genre, right? Like it's trying to be that movie because it's what it is. It's Halloween. That is what it is the quintessential horror film, but it's being told from the eyes of another, and that is fine. I don't want it to come across that like, oh my god, Rob Zombie is a terrible filmmaker. He should never touch it. I think he did fine. I think, funny enough, you know, as much as I bitch and complain about this movie, I thought it was fine. But the problem is in its core, like it's like the core design of the movie is that you wanted to tell an origin story. And like you mentioned near the beginning of our review here, it would have been perfect as its own movie if it was the let's find out what happened with Michael and why he is the way he is. I think that would have been a fine story to tell on its own, but they tried to do too much in one film and it lost focus right at the middle of it.
Yep.
Right, because it's trying to give you this sympathizing, oh man, poor Michael, that poor creature, he's just misunderstood, blah 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 blah, but you don't care, right? Because all you want to see, the reason people watch these movies, why do people watch these movies? To get scared because of this crazy killer man who, despite everything else, cannot be stopped. He's just the ultimate killer man.
The
and
ultimate
that's fun
evil
to watch.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
It's a
I
fun
completely agree
thing to
with you on that
watch.
standpoint because, like, when I watched this movie, I thought it was like just like how it comes with remakes. I thought it was an interesting approach that Zombie tried to do and try to make it his own. Right? I I liked and didn't like how he tried to create an origin for Michael, but that's where I had a problem about the movie. Is that it wasn't so much as the origin movie itself, but how it kind of splits up. It feels like two separate movies, and they were kind of grindhouse put together. So like the first half of the movie felt more cohesive than the second half of the movie, which is literally the remake of the original. I say this because we get introduced to Laurie and everybody else so late in the movie. In the original, we were introduced like almost 8 to 10 minutes after the start of the movie. We get more familiar with Laurie and her friends. We connect with them as characters, and then they are eventually killed off, just like any traditional slasher film. However, in this movie, we get 50 minutes into the movie, and then we're finally introduced to the characters, and not quite get like a full like 20 minutes with these characters before they start dying left and right. And I felt like another sinful thing was that Laurie's character, as much as she was the prominent one or the main character, says she didn't really feel like a main character. She just felt like a victim in the movie, not necessarily like our main heroine, right? Like we kind of mentioned earlier too, what we was established in the movie was that Michael's the main character. So it was kind of weird that we had him as a main character, but then all the things that we kind of build him up didn't make sense, didn't correlate to the character build itself, and it just kind of got and went off into wonky directions. I mean, as much as I'm kind of complaining and I'm like analyzing it in that standpoint, just like you mentioned, I didn't find anything really bad about this movie. I actually enjoyed it. It's not super grandiose. By far, it's not going to be better than the original. I mean, the original is like a King of the Hill at this point here, right? But this one's not that bad. I remember when this movie first came out, while it did pretty good in the box office, I remember a lot of fans were just trashing on this movie. A couple of my friends really trashed on it. I was like, I was in the middle of the road because like I appreciate it for what Zombie was trying to do, but at the same time, I'm like, there were some hit and misses, and I wasn't as analytical as I was now, but I'm like, I still felt like there was something off about the movie, and that was pretty much it. It was just that two-parter, right? And just like the first half, sure, it works as a movie as itself, but then when we try to tack on the remake part of it, it just didn't really work out, and it just felt too rushed. I felt the pacing on that one just really just kind of like sped through and just trying to speed through what we already knew in the original, but we didn't get much of a connection with our characters, and with our main character, we were just disconnected from him. So, I mean, that's how I felt about the movie in a more analytical standpoint.
Well, and I agree. I mean, again, it's just the entire thing about the movie that sucked for me is that it had no focus, right? It was trying to tell two, almost three stories in one go, and it didn't achieve at doing a good job of telling any of them. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the origin story worked. Again, I just have issues not only from like for the franchise, but it's more like from a movie making perspective, it didn't work for me. It didn't land for me because it's like, okay, you're trying to make this grounded killer, which doesn't make sense to me, honestly. And I've always been a huge fan of that mysticism of like, why is the killer who they are? Why do they commit these crimes, these horrible, ungodly acts? And yeah, sometimes they explain them, and then you go, oh shit, yeah, I guess it makes sense. Like he's going after family, or he's trying to kill his ex-wife, or he's trying to whatever. But Michael, since the beginning, from way back in the 80s, he was really cool and really interesting as a character because he had no reason. He has no motive. He is killing for the sake of that is who he is. That is his goal in life. You know, like our goal in life is to succeed and make money. His goal is to kill. That's it. That is his only truth. And it's fun to watch him on screen because he's scary. He's threatening. Even if you don't see him, he's a threat because you don't know when he's going to pop up. You don't know when he's going to kill next. You don't know if he's even the guy in the room who's going to kill somebody,
He's the
right?
boogeyman that's everywhere, basically.
And that is the thing. That's the thing that I love about Michael is that even when you go and you watch the movie, right, and you're coming home from the theater, you're like looking around like, oh shit, could there be like this scary man just watching me? You don't know. The unknown is one of the scariest things in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing is scary as shit. And that is what Michael is. He is an unknown. This movie doesn't do that justice. They turn him into the known. They turn
Yes.
him into this sad little quiet boy who, first of all, this dude was fucking up cats. Come on now. Like, it was me. I was like, oh,
Oh,
that's.
I was gonna say, like,
I hugged my cat right after.
I'm glad you can see those pictures because it's again one of those, like, if you don't see it, your imagination runs wild, right? And I'm like, I swear to God, if I saw a dead cat, like I always say about movies, I see a dead cat, it's a terrible movie. So I'm like, I didn't see a dead cat. I'm okay with it. It's not a terrible movie, although it alludes to dead cats. I didn't see anything. I'm okay.
Yeah, it just they
But
by giving him that origin story, they dissolve the entire point that is Michael. You're not even making Michael Myers anymore. You could have called him Stabby McGee and it would have been its own movie.
yeah,
But it was Rob Zombie taking John Carpenter's advice of make it your own, and he did that. He did that for the first hour. And then he said, "All right, let's go with what people like." And that's the first Halloween in 2007 makeup, right?
yep. And
At that point, it doesn't work.
and see, that's the thing too. Is like I don't mind it too much because again, he's taking it its own. He's creating an original. He's trying to give reason to it, which takes the mysticism away from Michael, like I mentioned too. But at the same time, by the time we get to that second act, or not second act, but the second part of the story, and we're trying to tell it, and it just kind of like goes nowhere with it in a sense. It just retells what we already know, and everything that they were building up Michael to be, the giving the reason behind him, made no sense at points. So it's like it's frustrating in that standpoint. Like, you're trying to make a character grounded in reality and give reason. Okay, yes, I can hear people arguing like, hey, he's a psychopath. He's gonna kill. There's not supposed to be rhyme and reason. True, but to some level or extent, there's a warped sense of logic, right? And there's something to follow. And that's why, like, some of the kills and non-kills that happened in this movie made no sense to me. As Michael as a character in that standpoint of what Zombie's trying to create, but it is what it is. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's still an enjoyable horror movie. Not the greatest, not the worst. Definitely not the worst, because I know a lot of people keep thrashing this one's like, don't ever watch this one. This is a terrible like remake or whatnot. I was like, no, the first one's actually pretty good. You want to watch a terrible remake? Well, go watch the sequel of this movie.
It's funny because I think from a film perspective, the first one, while the film itself works, it's not that great if you think about it, right? Because it's low budgety, it's not that well done as far as like the I guess the budget didn't go into making everything super believable. But what John Carpenter did, his magic was creating the atmosphere that it's scary as shit. Right, the kills weren't even all that brutal. It was like, oh, like I remember seeing it. The first kill, Judith, it is it's shot very weird. It's so corny, and it's almost like watching like some John Tron thing where he's doing like the "Can a guy get some privacy?" and he's killing. It looks so low budgety, like school film type of thing. But the magic that John Carpenter brings to the movie, sorry, it sounds like I'm saying Carpenter, but it's not. I have like a stuffy, somewhat nose. Is that he creates this freaking vibe of like, yo, it could be the middle of the day at noon o'clock, and he could be out there. He could be watching. He could be around the corner, and he could be in and out in a second. That's what's terrifying about Michael, is that it's not like in the most horror movies where like, as long as it's daytime, you're safe, child. Like, no, you could be at 12 o'clock eating a sandwich at a Wendy's and he'll get you, or he'll be looking at you. You just don't know. Rob Zombie's version of Michael Myers just doesn't work for me. It doesn't work on being a reboot. It doesn't work on being its own thing. It doesn't work at being an origin story. It doesn't work. That being said, I don't think it was the worst piece of media I've ever seen. I'm sure there's definitely way, like you just said, I'm sure the sequel's way worse. I'm never going to watch it.
If we ever get a chance around or whatnot, the sequel is I haven't seen it since the theaters, and from what I can remember about the sequel was it's like being on, not that I know it or anything. I'm just making a hyperbole here, but it's like psychedelics. It's a trippy horror movie. It feels like an Italian giallo film is the best way I would describe it. It is out there. and
I'm
it has
never gonna
it.
watch it. So
I will almost say like you could take away the name Halloween or take away Michael Myers, and you couldn't tell if it was actually part of the franchise or not. That's how distant I felt that movie was. I've only watched it once back when it came out in the theaters. I think it was like a 2010, 29 that the movie came out, but I haven't seen it since then. I do have it. I need to watch it sometime again soon. But that said, overall scoring out of a 5, right? I usually score my movies 1 out of 5 because it's much more poignant, more straight up, no halves or anything, just straight up what I like, what the movie score is. And to be honest, Rob Zombie's Halloween, the 2007 remake, gets a 3 out of 5 from me. But Spencer, what do you give the Rob Zombie remake of Halloween?
I mean, if we're scoring it by a number, I think a 2 would be that it wasn't fun of a movie. It wasn't great, but I would maybe watch it one more time. I have no plans to watch this movie again, so I'm gonna land it in a 1. Um,
Oh, dang.
there's just
Damn.
no rhyme or reason to watch this film. First of all, there's no reason to watch this over the original Halloween. The original Halloween has its flaws. It's not a perfect movie by any means,
Mm-hmm.
but it creates the tone of what Halloween is. That movie is the spirit of it. It's almost the spirit of the holiday, right? Is that it's scary. It's supposed to be this time of year where the spooky stuff comes out. And Michael Myers is the perfect scary villain of a monster man kind of guy, right? He creates that unease that you can't even be like cooking, and even in the newer 2018 version, it's still really really good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I really like the 2018 version. Um, and that movie does a great job of they don't make him a grounded character. He kills and he kills and he just kills. That's all. He has a target.
He is
He's almost
just
a
a
predator versus prey.
yes.
And
And
I
they just go right
love
back to the
that.
old roots. Slashy mix slash, basically.
And I love that. I absolutely love that. Um, there's no reason to watch this one over the 1978 version. Because I feel like Rob Zombie became really ambitious with wanting to take over this IP, at least to create his one version. The fact that he got 2 was fucking incredible. I think it's like, I don't understand how that
They
happened.
pushed him into doing the sequel, and well, I don't think they pushed him. He wanted to do the sequel, but he didn't get to do the sequel that he wanted to make because they kept interfering, and then that's the product that they made. So I was like, if it was bad with the interference that they did on this movie, they did a lot worse in the second one, and then he just started the F with them, and that's what that movie became. That's why I was like, oh man, it is a fucking train wreck.
It's just
I
yeah,
mean,
this movie just stops working on so many levels, and it's a shame. I think it's a real shame because I feel like if Rob Zombie probably had his way and he was able to do his own story and not rely too heavily on the original, he probably could have made something that, while not masterpiece or like this other, oh my god, this is the best film ever, he could have made something that it would have been able to stand on its own 2 legs. Um,
I mean, for me, like I generally with me with a 3, it's a movie I wouldn't mind watching again, or I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it to some extent. It's just it's an okay horror movie. It's the best way I would put it. Like 3s, it's just like it's okay. It's fine enough. If someone wants to watch it, I'll watch it again. I'm not going to complain necessarily. It could be worse. But yeah, it's a fine movie on its own. Definitely not better than the original by no means. I find them not saying the original is a masterpiece, but it is a masterclass of its own, basically. And no, by no means I would ever be able to compare Zombies movie to that one, but I can have some level of respect towards it. Like, Zombie again trying to make it his own, which is something I can be appreciated when someone is trying to take something and create something anew with it. So that's some level of appreciation right there. I enjoyed it as a movie. Zombie style is sometimes a hit and miss just because it's very jarring at times. The characters can be a little bit fun from time to time, especially with his familiars that he brings in there, like Bill Moseley, or in this case here with Sid Haig, even though he's a very small role. He had like less than 2 minutes in this film, but I mean
yeah.
that was all I had to say. Any closing words for this review here?
Just I'm excited for Halloween Kills. Honestly, I'm excited for that sequel. I actually put a trailer in the chat for you to check
Oh,
out because that one kind of gave me goosebumps, and you'll see why.
ooh, I gotta check it out. With that said, then we're gonna go ahead and end off the stream. But just in case, too, if you guys haven't already, again, if you're watching this on Twitch, follow me on my Twitch channel. You're watching this on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment down below. What did you guys think? What did you guys think about what we had to say about the movie? You agree with us? Disagree with us? Um, did you love the movie? Did you hate the movie? Do you think it's all right? Whatever it is, put it down in the comments down below. And of course, if you haven't already too, make sure to check out Spenser on his Twitch channel at Heartless Omega, and check him out on Twitter as well, under at Heartless Omega as well. He makes some funny tweets there and does live streams. Speaking of live streams too, dude, what kind of live streams are you be doing as of recent or anything like that?
So, yeah, I've been doing a lot more streaming on Twitch after taking a break for like 4 or 5 years.
I'm
Which
guilty of this too.
It wasn't intended. It's just my computer was not up to snuff, but that has changed in the last year or two now. So I'm streaming a lot of Dead by Daylight over there from time to time. I'm taking some time to do some horror games this month in particular. But I know I'm a variety. I play a little bit of whatever I'm just in the mood for, like Apex Legends, Pokemon Unite, Dead by Daylight have been catching my interest as of late. But, you know, I do plan to play other games as well, but I do enjoy more of the horror genre, or just, you know, whatever games I just like. So, yeah, yeah, it's just anything, you know, anything that's fun to watch, but mainly Dead by Daylight right now, just because that's like that's what I'm starting to do. And I will be actually just did a charity stream not too long ago that went really, really, really well. It was really fun. Be doing more of those in the future. So yeah, swing on by to check those out.
Absolutely. And so, guys, you hear that? Definitely check him out on his live streams, and check out the charity streams too. Great causes. So, other than that, we're gonna go ahead and end it off here. I'll maybe do one next week for another live stream. I still need to do a Gundam one. I need to finish off what I started here, but it's the month of October. I think we should do some spooky stuff. Other than that, maybe do another review this coming up weekend. If not, I'm definitely going to try and aim to do something either movie or stream wise coming up for the weekend of October itself, for the Halloween weekend. But again, do want to thank you guys for watching, and until the next live stream review, catch you guys next time. Take care.